I mute the mic. Oh, hey, how's it going?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Heavy Metallurgy Friday night. My name is Alan, and I'm here to talk some metal with my co-host, Marty. Marty, how are you doing this week?
Fine, I guess. Been kind of one of those weeks, but we made it through. And for
It has
Friday
been
night, that's the best part of the week right here, for sure.
It has been one of those crazy weeks, and I'm forgetting to mute stuff, but now it's taken care of. So now that we've got that little thing taken care of, we've also got one of our favorite returning guests with us this evening, Matt from the Dark Path channel. Matt, how are you doing this week?
I have had a very long, a very stressful, a very painful week, so I'm looking forward to getting shit hammered tonight and talking some metal with y'all.
I'll drink to that.
Oh, this week can eat my balls. How about you guys?
Yeah,
it's not been great.
It's been a little crazy. Here in the South, we had about 6 inches of snow, which for any northern part of the country, that's equal to about 253 feet in terms of the amount of psychological, physical trauma and damage it causes. So, yeah, dealing with that other crazy stuff, but we've put the week to bed. We've put the kids to bed, and now it's time to have some fun talking about some cool heavy metal stuff. Before we get rolling on tonight's topic, I did want to take a moment and say, if folks have not been watching them, Matt here has been absolutely killing it with some awesome deep dives over on the Dark Path channel lately. He's been covering some very cool bands, like My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult. Really, really nice one on Ministry more recently. So, Matt, you're really in the zone on those lately. Two big thumbs up, man.
Excuse me, I appreciate that. They take no planning whatsoever. I just turn the camera on and start talking, and I edit out as many burps and bleeps as I can, but those are pretty much just stream of consciousness deep dives, and I try to keep them at a reasonable hour, and sometimes I succeed and sometimes I don't. So I'm glad you enjoy them, man.
Yeah,
very good stuff.
It's cool stuff, and I'm not surprised in a way that they are sort of done off the cuff. It's very clear. I mean, you know those bands inside and out. You don't need to do much prep. So yeah, it comes across as very natural, and I mean, you got that shit nailed down really well. They're bands I don't know a ton about, so it's been really interesting for me to listen and just learn more about them, even though they're bands that are a little outside my wheelhouse. Still, lots of really cool info in those. So yeah, folks, if you need something to do this weekend, if you're snowed in or something like that, head over to the Dark Path and check out some of these excellent videos that Matt has been cranking out. He's on a roll here early in 2022. Give the man some love.
Love me. Love me.
Ray, you might be sadly disappointed. The key is not in my stack.
I think we can. I think we can cover Ray.
Okay, cool.
We're getting covered. It's all good. All good. And yes,
may have just crossed the thresholds of what we can talk about here, but
it is time to perhaps, break that seal. And in case someone hadn't figured it out based on our background and thumbnail for the night, Matt has chosen our topic for the night. As usual, we let the guests pick something they feel passionate about and would like to discuss. And Matt has chosen to lead us into the archives of Earache Records, a label that we all know, have tons of titles by. And to get this Earache party started, Marty is going to fire us up with a little background and history on the label to get us started with some talking points. So, Marty, take it away.
None of this is out of my own brain. All this was via Wikipedia, so I'm not that smart, trust me. But as most of us know, Earache is an independent label, music publisher, and management company founded by Digby Pearson in 1985. It gained most of its notoriety in the late 80s, mid 90s by releasing, jumping on the grindcore movement pretty early, kind of revolutionizing it with the bands he signed, and moving into death metal bands that took off. They got really quite popular. But the label started off as a kind of a hardcore crossover label. The first release is Mosh #1 is The Accused, The Return of Martha Splatterhead, which I didn't know until I was in New York City in Ian Christie's apartment, looking at it, holding it in my hand, going, I did not know this came out on Earache initially. The second, Mosh number 2, was a crossover, a hardcore split between Concrete Socks and Heresy. And it wasn't really until Mosh number 3, which is the catalog numbers, Napalm Death Scum, which the band was new, very influenced by Japanese hardcore, kind of doing their own thing, punk mixed with intense speed. The band got a push by BBC One radio show host John Peel, and Scum went to number 7 in the UK indie charts. And from there, it was off and running for Earache Records and bands like Napalm Death and Carcass and any other band that... Am I hearing like a radio station going on?
I hear just a little something. It's
Nothing on my end. Y'all are going crazy, apparently.
Could be.
This is very strange. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
No, I hear you fine, but yeah, we're picking up a little background signal from somewhere. Not
Yeah,
sure
someone
what.
just said it's annoying. Hold on, let me mute me, see if it's me. It is a religious channel.
It does sound like maybe we got a TV.
Here, hold on. Let me make you mute Matt. It's Matt.
Matthew.
Is it really me? Oh, man.
Picking up a religious transmission through your gear. You either have a bad cord or something. That's fucking funny.
That's ridiculous. All right. Well, I'll unplug this and go to my computer audio, and we'll see if that helps. All right.
Understand deliverance. I heard that too, and that's why I knew right away it was a religious transmission.
I felt a strange urge to fund a rich preacher's private airplane. So yeah,
my guitar amp at practice, if you plug it into the wrong outlet, it picks up far right channel radio broadband channels. I don't know, it's crazy.
Weird.
You appear to have I can hardly hear you, but I don't hear the transmission anymore.
Can you hear me better now?
Maybe. I don't know.
No.
So, but not great.
If you talk just a little louder, you'll probably be fine. We can hear you. Sorry, folks. Little tech thing. Yeah, it's a wireless. No, it's not a wireless mic. He's got a mic right by his head there.
Can you hear me now? Any better?
Not
You're
bad.
Quiet. We can hear you, but it's not as loud as it was. But I'm not picking up the.
Just move the computer closer to my head so you're can
fine.
Just take it all in. Take it in,
That's
everybody. Right. Look at the glory. Here it is.
That's right.
All right. Is that better than the Holy Spirit?
That's way better than the Holy Spirit.
All right.
Here we go.
But so yeah, Earache Records. They're one of those labels that I mean, really, if you really think about it and you look at the list of bands and the type of music, it was the right place at the right time. And who would have thought that any of the, like those bands like Napalm Death, early Carcass would go on to do anything? Let's be honest. That early grind stuff, it appeals to a very small clique of people initially, before the bands start to evolve and get better and tighter and more produced. And who would have thought a label like Earache, covering bands like, Concrete Socks or Heresy or Napalm Death, early Napalm Death, early Carcass, all the early stuff that they were involved in. Who would have thought that label would have stood the test of time? And those bands, and a lot of those bands are still functioning today and are very much legacy bands, which is crazy. So what do you guys think?
Matt, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. They were a label that I think filled a niche very, very well when they first got really big and popular, but they kind of lost that mojo after a while, whereas certain other labels didn't really follow that trajectory either. Like, Century Media is still a respected metal label. Metal Blade is still a respected metal label. Nuclear Blast is still a respected metal label. Does anybody give a crap about anything Earache has released in the past 20 years, like 15, 10, 12, 15 years? I don't
A couple
think so.
albums here and there.
A couple albums here and there, but by and large, they really kind of crapped the bed. But before they crapped the bed, they were, the pinnacle, one of the go-to labels. You saw that Earache logo on something and you went right for it. And you can't say that today, unfortunately. So
yeah, that's very much the case. When you look at the history of Earache overall, it seems it was very much a case of someone being in the right place at the right time to sort of take the reins and spearhead that nascent grind scene that was developing in the UK around, Napalm Death in particular, and some other bands with like-minded aspirations. And it quickly, they picked up velocity. Signed a lot of very important bands as they were coming to fruition, and there's a window of time there where Earache is the label in extreme metal music, and to the point that they end up collaborating with Sony Columbia Records on huge marketing deals for these bands as you get into around 93. And then it all fell apart very rapidly. That deal was actually, Columbia backed out of it 2 years into a 3-year deal. They didn't even make it to the third year. And after that, the stable of bands for Earache, the attrition was very, very fast. That by the time you get into the late 90s and the early 2000s, the roster is unrecognizable. I was really surprised, going through the discography, looking for titles to talk about tonight. I always try to go through the whole discography for these labels when I can, when we do these streams. I've made it through all of them except for one. I pulled up the Discogs entry for Earache. It's got 2,300 listings. And so I'm thinking, oh my God, this is going to take forever to dig through. I got through it in like 15 minutes. Because there's this, there's this big chunk of legacy bands, but you kind of know those titles, very well. So it's easy to think, okay, yeah, I want to pick that one, that one, that one, that one. And then you're looking for, smaller entries, more obscure things, the deep cuts. And, maybe there's a couple here and there, but not too many. And then, once you get around the turn of the century, it's just like, those aren't really metal bands. Don't know anything about that band. Never heard of this band before in my life. It's just like, who are these guys? I don't know. And so
it's like they're like a southern rock hillbilly kind of a record label now, and it's really, really strange that they went in that direction. But they've been on that trajectory for a while. So I mean, there's bands out there that listen to that stuff that's keeping them afloat. But I think Earache probably makes more money today from their countless issues that they do of their classic roster. And that's what keeps Digby in his mansion and his yacht is just all the great old stuff. I mean, I can't imagine one of these weird southern rock bands that he has today is selling as many copies as a Napalm Death reissue. Like, there's just no way,
Yeah, I don't think Blackberry Smoke CDs are paying for that third Ivory back scratcher.
Yeah, like they're just such a weird label today. But even though they're kind of maybe lost their way a little bit, you can't deny the importance of those early years and the sheer greatness of the body of work that they had through the 80s, the 90s, and maybe the first half of the 2000s, but that's about it. So, I mean, they do have a lot of great albums, and, they were one of those labels that, when I was starting to get into metal, they were one that I trusted. You saw Earache on there. I like Napalm Death. I like Morbid Angel. here's an earache band I haven't heard yet. Let me check it out. You know, you can't say that today, but in 1997, 1998, you could totally trust that. So,
yeah, you could. Go ahead, Marty.
I was gonna say in Furnace Rex, Mitch asked, didn't you guys already cover Earache? No, it just seems like it because we covered the Carcass discography. We we talked about death metal coming up in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, and Earache they had their finger on the pulse of that whole thing. So I mean, it's hard not to get out of talking about the past and new genres coming in when the label is it was right on the forefront of that whole movement.
Yeah. Have we ever brought up Bolt Thrower before? Maybe
a couple times, probably again tonight too.
Maybe once or twice, a little here or there. Yeah, but no, it's a good point that some of these titles are ones we have talked about it with other topics, but no, we haven't actually dug through the label itself. A moment ago, Matt, you compared Earache's sort of fall from grace to some of the other big labels that haven't had that same problem, and there's a cautionary tale here in terms of how you treat your bands and things like that. Digby's been at the center of a lot of controversies. A lot of those bands do not speak fondly of him and his business practices, and even currently he is involved in lawsuits, and there's a lot of allegations. Looking at things, Dan Seagrave, has a lawsuit against Digby and Earache for copyright infringement.
Making puzzles with his artwork on it.
Dan maintains that Earache has permission to use the artwork for the covers of albums as much as they want to, but not for any other type of merchandising. Yet you still, you're seeing jigsaw puzzles of Altars of Madness out there and other, random T-shirts and mugs and things. And Dan maintains that his contracts explicitly say that he did not ever release his artwork to be used for any other type of merchandise, and that he maintained control of that stuff. So there you go, that too. So between signing lots of very weird bands that are way outside the metal genre, having constant sort of bad press and bad PR from your former band members not talking kindly about you, even this fight with Seagrave apparently has kind of been an on and off thing over 20 years or so. You're not going to be able to, you get to a point where enough bad shit is floating around you, you're not going to attract any new talent. The old bands are going to drift away when they get a chance, and who are you going to sign if that becomes your reputation? Bands, they know what's going on.
Smoke. You'll sign Blackberry Smoke and the White Buffalo and all of these.
Yes, you will get
country fried Southern rock bands.
You will get to distribute Blackberry Smoke's 2015 album in Europe only.
And these, we're picking on these bands. They may be totally awesome bands. I don't know. I've never listened to Blackberry Smoke. I've heard a few White Buffalo songs, and I actually like them. They had a few songs that were on Sons of Anarchy. That's one of my favorite shows. So I know who White Buffalo is, but a lot of these bands that they have today, you're right. All these bands moved on, and they have such a bad reputation today. Who are you going to get? You might sign a band like Vector, but that's a band with a wife beater. So what are you going to do?
At this point, actually, I've not only heard Blackberry Smoke, I've seen them play live, very randomly. But it was probably about the time they were getting European distribution through Earache. They happened to play here in town. One of my buddies was visiting. He likes that style of music, and so he's like, "Hey, can we go check this out?" I'm like, absolutely. We went. I want to say they were playing with somebody like Unknown Henson, maybe. It was a fun show. They, for that style of music, Blackberry Smoke does it just fine. There's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. It's just that, having bands playing that style on what once upon a time was the premier label on the planet for extreme metal, it just shows you really how far out of that orbit they've fallen over time. So it is what it is, I suppose.
Yeah, they're like Nick is saying, they're pretty much just a retro rock label now, which is a far cry from Entombed, Bolt Thrower, Terrorizer, Carcass, Morbid Angel. Like it's just such a strange change.
Well, they were always trying to push borders a little bit. It was like the late 90s, early 2000s. They had bands like Ultraviolence and Massive Attack, which were just bad techno type stuff.
Yeah, they had the techno scanner, not the German power metal scanner.
Right.
Well, they also were pushing a lot of industrial metal too. Like I've got some stuff here that I pulled out, so I don't want to jump too far ahead. But I mean, they were always trying or testing the waters with other stuff, but really just the meat and potatoes were the only things that were really selling. There was an interview with Digby I read in some fanzine 5 or 6 years ago. I don't know, but he said that, the only bands that were successful for the label, if you don't count what's going on with the label now with all the retro rock stuff, the only things that were ever successful were the main bands that Anytime they stepped outside of that, none of that stuff sold at all, but they still tried. So, credit where credit's due. At least they did try, but, that's just how it goes sometimes.
Yep. Something else, I might as well mention it now before we start in on bands. Another thing that I don't think is helping Earache's, general reputation these days is they live off, reissues of their classics, but they're not putting a lot of effort into those. Their CDs are, they're really cheaply done digipacks. There's, no booklet with them, minimal packaging, really, really crap. There's just no other way to say it. Let's face it, CDs not the most sought after medium to begin with these days. If you want people to buy the physical product rather than just listen to it on Spotify or something, for God's sake, put a little effort into the packaging and give people something worth paying $13.99 for. I've gotten a couple of these Earache reissues in recent years. I will not buy them anymore because they're shit. I literally was at the record store last weekend and saw something. I don't remember what it was. I was like, oh, hey, I don't think I have a copy of that. I might pick it up. I was like, oh, wait, no, it's one of these new Earache reissues. And I just put it right back down. I'm not going to buy these fucking things anymore. If they cannot put any effort into packaging them, why am I paying for the packaging? I can download it cheaper. I'll pay for the download. I don't mind doing that. But really, I get the CD and essentially nothing for twice the price of what I could have just bought the digital download for. Hey, this is, again, it really is just a sign. They're just kind of living off, their glory days. They're resting on their laurels. They're not putting any effort into this stuff. They could make these reissues nicer, add bonus tracks, add a good booklet. Don't make them just these flimsy things that are basically one step up from a dubbed TDK tape that used to have a Tiffany album on side B. You can do better than that, or I'm not going to buy your product.
We got him going, everybody. We got Alan going on a rant. This is what I wanted, man.
I figured I would just go ahead and get that taken care of early tonight. Yep. So it's just, I don't mind buying CDs sometimes, but I expect something better than that. And if you can't provide it, I will not pay for it. So again, boo on Earache.
Even as bad as those digipacks are, they're still better than that last Carcass reissue they did of Reek of Putrefaction, where it's just a black vinyl with the sliver, and they don't even have like the real artwork anywhere on the interior. Like,
and people still buy it, and people are still buying it because it's Carcass. I would not buy that album because of that. I would not
buy that at all. And man, that right there is such a slap to the face of all of us. I mean, that is just inexcusable. But
agreed.
I will not go as off the deep end as Alan likes to go. Although I do kind of want to I do want to get Alan going just a little bit. I had to pull it out, Alan. You know it was coming.
It's not an Earache record. That's
not Earache, but look at that artwork, man. Just look at it.
Calm Blue Ocean, Matt. Calm Blue Ocean. You can't phase me with that.
I'm the guest. I can do whatever I want. And I wanna
You
keep
can, but
going
I'm not taking that bait
on a little
tonight.
chameleon here, buddy. Come
I'm
on,
sorry,
man.
Mr. Troll. I am not taking that bait tonight. If I want to rant about something, it's
Look at
this
the little
shit right here.
babies. Look at the baby pumpkins. Look at them.
Oh, the pumpkins are the one thing that's okay. They've got pumpkins all over all their CDs. I don't mind the pumpkins.
Come on, man. Look at this wonderful artwork. You know you want to go off on it.
Calm blue ocean, pretty blue butterflies. I'm in my
Look
zen
at
happy
the homeless
space.
kitty cat, Alan. Look at him.
Not going to shake me, man. I appreciate the attempt, but
I don't know, man. This one right here, the song's called "In the Night," and they changed it to all black. You see?
Oh, you missed your window. You missed your window. You picked the wrong song. You should have gone for Red Socks and the Smell of Trees. That might have got a little twitch or two out of me.
Or how about this? This album is 71 minutes and 26 seconds long. Come on.
You missed your shot. You missed. You had a window.
I listened to that album on the way home from Minnesota, and I appreciate the talent of it, but it's not. It's a mess. The album's a mess. Anyway,
we'll save that for we'll do a deep dive on Halloween's Chameleon on my next appearance on this show, and we'll get Alan to take the bait then, because
you'll see. Maybe you never know. If you want to dedicate your time of your life to a deep dive on that album,
I do. I have nothing. Alan, I have nothing else better to do with my time but listen to Halloween and do my best to get you to go off on a rant about something. So that's what we're gonna do.
That's why everybody's here.
Yeah,
to hear Alan's opinions on stuff.
See, I know somebody wants to pull out Torn Arteries and get you going, but that's not an Earache release either. So
nope, and that's a good example of they're one of their most important bands, and they couldn't keep them. And when they came back, was there any chance Carcass was ever going to re-sign with Earache when they got
here he goes, everybody?
No,
here he goes, everybody.
I think there was a better chance of them, ordering steaks than there was for them signing with Earache again.
Okay,
right.
So
I think it's time we start pulling some records for folks.
Yeah, what have you got, Matt? Let's start off. What you bring to the
Well, I will start off with the very first Earache album I ever bought. We have talked. I don't know if we've talked about it on one of the streams we used to do back in the day, or if you guys even talked about this when you talked about compilations. But when I was coming up, compilations were how you found out about stuff. So your generation, I'm sure, was all about the Grind Crusher compilation. But for me, 1997, it was Earplug 2. This was my entry point with Earache Records. And this is a compilation that turned me on to Napalm Death, Cathedral, Carcass, At the Gates, Godflesh, Misery Loves Company, Ultraviolence, Pitch Shifter, Entombed, Anal Cunt, and Extreme Noise Terror. So even though it's not Grind Crusher, the go-to be-all, end-all of all Earache compilations, this one was pretty solid too. And this is the one that really opened the door for a lot of roads for me to follow. And I can track that all back to this $3 compilation that I bought when I was 16 years old. So that's what I'm starting off with.
Awesome.
And that's the track list if anybody wants to go spend $3 on Discogs after we're done talking tonight. This is what you'll get. So pretty good compilation. It's good stuff. It's not as good as this. Not nearly as good as this, but
right.
Yeah. There you go.
What you got, Alan?
Let's see. We'll start off. Well, again, there's a lot of heavy hitters on this label, so let's just start with one of them. When this album came out, everybody knew it was a big deal, but I'm not sure anybody realized how big a deal it was going to still be, 25 years down the road. At the Gates came out at the tail end of 1995, and it shows
we all
the band's only release. Oh, sorry, what, Matt?
I just said we all picked it. We all had it in our stack. We're all showing
Yeah,
it. So.
there's going to be some overlap tonight for sure.
Oh, absolutely, no doubt.
Unavoidable. But yeah, At the Gates had done a few albums before this, but this was their first and last for Earache. And they had been, slowly kind of, increasing the aggression over, the earlier albums. The first few albums are interesting. They never fully resonated with me. They're not bad. Terminal Spirit Disease is pretty good. But on this one, they're just come out with a real ferocity. They're much tighter, much more focused, much angrier sounding than they were on any of the previous releases. And it was immediately hailed as a very impressive album at the time of release. Everybody, got great reviews. The band, of course, broke up, at the end of the tour. Nothing else came out for a long time. And everybody, knew it was kind of like, oh, for a long time it's a shame. That was one of those bands that, kind of quit at the pinnacle of their career and didn't, ever get a chance to do a proper follow-up to it. And over time, the album's just kind of, if anything, grown in stature. It's now commonly cited by bands in lots of other metal genres as having been a big influence, from, melodic death metal to mallcore and everything in between. It's just one of those albums that seems to really click with almost everybody. I'm sure there are folks that don't enjoy it, but it's had a massive impact on heavy metal since it came out.
For better or for worse with that record, depending on which side of the fence you like to swing on. So
some things that folks are like, yeah, I'm glad it was there, and it's had some strange lineages spawn and branch out from it as well, which I think is why it's a really interesting album, why it was the first one I wanted to mention tonight.
It's by far my favorite from that band. I mean, I know that might be sacrilegious to some people, but man, the early stuff, Tompa's vocals were just fried. Red in the Sky Is Ours. That he sounds blown out on that album, and it just, I don't know, man. This album seems so streamlined, and it encapsulated perfectly what was going on in Sweden during this era. I mean, they were certainly the spearhead of the whole melodic death metal movement, and were these guys were Gothenburg, weren't they? They weren't. No, they were. I can't remember.
I think they were Gothenburg.
I think they were Gothenburg, actually, but
I lump them in there, but I'll double check just to make sure that we're not way off base with that.
If we don't get that correct, the internet police are gonna.
Yeah, I don't think they weren't Stockholm. I don't think they were Stockholm.
All good.
Yeah, perfect album. It really is a great album, and it holds up so well. It's still a great album.
Yeah,
for sure. But okay.
Yeah, so just I think it's a good example too that even there, as you get into the mid '90s, and it's it's a bit different from a lot of the other bands and sounds that Earache was putting out at the time. That they were still putting out very influential albums even in 1995.
Right.
I'm surprised how many people in the comments don't seem to like that album right now. Like they're listing a bunch of other albums that they like more, but to me, it was all about Slaughter of the Soul growing up.
Yeah. And I bought Red in the Sky Is Ours on tape when it came out, and I liked it, but I liked a lot of other death metal that was in and around that area a lot more than that, just because of Thomas's vocals just were so dry and burnt out. They just did not fit the music that well. You could tell they've been playing a lot of shows or something. I don't know, but anyway, I'm up, and I'll be the old guy that shows one of my early soirees into the Earache.
There it is.
I knew it.
Yep.
And there's only 9 songs on this. Morbid Angel, Repulsion, Carcass, Godflesh, Napalm Death, Terrorizer, Bolt Thrower, Intense Degree, and Filthy Christians, which I own everything by every band on here other than Intense Degree. And later on, it got reissued on cassette and CD, and the track listing grew quite a bit. And still, there was a ton of great stuff on here. This is one of those comps that goes down in history as one of those. I mean, this is pre-internet, and this is what you needed to really get a flavor of what a label was laying down. And this and the Metal Blade comps and the Noise International comps and you name it, the Relapse comps, the Nuclear Blast comps, all that shit was so huge in getting people turned on to so many different bands in one usually very cheap price point. I got this new as an import. Well, I mean, look it was £2.99. That's pretty fucking cheap to begin with. I got it at a record store import in Grand Rapids, Michigan at Vinyl Solution Records for $6.99. That's pretty fucking incredible. And it's, of course, the tape costs more than the record did, which is really dumb. But yeah, I mean, this was set me going. And I think one of my first bands on Earache that I heard was I saw Morbid Angel live on Altars of Madness. And I heard the first or second Carcass from a friend. And it just, Morbid Angel was impressive. I got into them pretty quick. Carcass took a little bit of education, and that stuff, like that first Carcass album, you had to listen to it a bunch, and you really kind of had to want to like it to try to like it, because it was such a snarled turd of a sounding album. But it got better. They got better, and once you click with that stuff and that music presents itself to you, it's quite an eye-opening revelation. And then once you got your mind wrapped around it, coming from thrash and heavy metal, this grindcore stuff was a lot to process. It was a lot to process. But thankfully I had also a punk background and hardcore background as well, because of, all my friends were into different stuff as well. So I was like a sponge during this time. I typically hated everything at first, but it took time to grow, and these comps were the perfect vehicle. And, for me, it's one of the more important Earache releases for sure.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. And I think this was another good example of Digby having the right release at the right time, that, they stuffed this, full of tracks, and it was a great, they kept the price on it cheap, like you said. It was an excellent vehicle just to introduce people, not just to these bands, but this entire style. And, really just almost, overwhelmed them, just like, you will listen to this and you will find things on here that you like. Yeah, I had the cassette version, and yeah, some bands, obviously, latched onto faster than others from it. But yeah, a very, very big release that brought a lot of eyeballs and a lot of ears to the roster that they were building up. It was smart marketing. It was a good call to put that out. It clicked at the right time, and yeah. And you're right. It was a good point, Marty. It was a very extreme sound for a lot of folks, I think, particularly in the US, because we didn't necessarily have anything similar happening in the US. Grind was very much a British thing. At the same time, the US, we were, wearing the high top white Nikes and black pants and doing thrash moshing. And as we've talked about at other times, it's almost like the UK skipped the thrash phase. There's a few thrash bands, of course, but they kind of almost went straight from new wave of British heavy metal into grind, and they just skipped that in between phase on the intensity scale.
And the thrash bands that were there was a handful of them that were good, but there was a larger amount of them that were pretty average. I thought the UK thrash stuff, there's some average bands that come out of that country for some reason, which is weird, because you look at England and it typically it's the hotbed for anything new. I mean, whether it's gothic music or pop music or grindcore, you name it, you name the or traditional heavy metal, new wave of British heavy metal. It's always seems to be an innovator when it comes to new genres of music, getting it off the ground. Thrash metal, there was some great shit. Onslaught, The Force, Sabbath albums. There's some good shit. Don't get me wrong. It's not all bad, but there's a lot of stuff that I bought after the fact, and I listened back to it with fresh ears, and it just doesn't hold up. It just doesn't hold up.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of those bands, the guys that wanted to play more extreme music, they were looking, to Napalm Death records by that point. If you want to be like, the loudest, fastest, heaviest, craziest band on earth, you're not going to copy, Bonded by Blood. You're going to copy, Scum. You're going to copy, what you're hearing, on those Peel sessions.
Yep.
Okay. To me, it always seems like
in the UK, because the US and Germany had thrash taken care of by and large, they
Sure.
went to grindcore, and then the antithesis of grindcore, doom. So, that's kind of what was happening there.
Agreed. Yeah, I think you're right. There
Just
was
one
no
bald
need.
man's opinion. Just one.
No, I
bald
think it's a good point, Matt. There was really no need or no room for the UK to have a thrash scene. It, like you said,
Yeah.
those bases were covered by other countries before they had a chance to do anything with it.
And they were close enough to Germany where, those bands toured the UK constantly. So, they kind of went different directions.
Yep. All right. Before we go back to the top of the lineup, we have a viewer request. Over here, I've been texted by one of my wife's friends, Tiffany, who's watching us. So, hey, Tiffany, thanks for tuning in.
Hi.
And Tiffany had sort of a request/question, and I'm not sure this album will come up later. So I thought, if y'all don't mind, I'd like to just jump in and see if anybody has thoughts on this one. Tiffany asks or says, I hope they discuss the Entombed Covers album. So, any thoughts on Sons of Satan, Praise the Lord that we'd like to share?
I don't think I own that. I don't own
that one. I've got another Entombed that I was going to show later, actually coming up in a couple of albums. I can show it next if you want. That has some covers on it, but it's not that one.
Okay. Yeah, I've never owned this one either. I'm looking at the track list on it, but yeah, they're basically covering things from a lot of their contemporaries: Repulsion, SOD. There's a Misfits cover, Rocky Erickson, Kiss, Husker Du cover, King Crimson. So yeah, actually kind of all over the place here. Alice Cooper. But
I've heard that Rocky Erickson, the Vampire, Night of the Vampire or whatever, I think is the song.
Yeah,
Yep,
Night of the Vampire.
They did a video for that, yeah.
Okay.
It's a good song.
It is a good song.
Okay. So yeah, Tiffany's actually pulling out the obscure ones, even getting a bit ahead of us. So
right on.
Yeah, but I wanted to shout that out since I'm getting texts from people who are very much interested in certain aspects of Earache's catalog. So thanks, Tiffany.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. I mean, anybody has anything, definitely let us know. We'll touch upon it if we can. And speaking of being touched upon, here's Matt.
Well, this was the third album I was going to show, but because of Tiffany, I will go ahead and show it now. This was the third Earache album I ever bought, and it was the self-titled Entombed compilation. And this compilation has some of those cover songs on here. It's got God of Thunder by Kiss. It has Night of the Vampire by Rocky Erickson. And then there's a couple of hardcore punk covers on here, but the names of the original bands are escaping me right now, and I don't want to have to flip through the book to figure it out and waste everybody's time, but that is the track listing. And it was a pretty good comp for a long time. This was my go-to Entombed album. If it wasn't Left Hand Path, I just went ahead and listened to this comp because it had a lot of great stuff on it. I mean, it had the best of the Death and Roll era, but it had some of the more harder hitting songs from that period as well. And this was just a great little comp. And I remember this being one that I didn't really know anybody else that had this. When it comes to Entombed, most people will rate the hell out of Left Hand Path and Wolverine Blues and Clandestine, and then everything else is crap, apparently. I do not agree with that opinion, but
me either.
I mean, this was a great compilation that had a lot of good stuff before they kissed Earache goodbye and went off and did their own weird stuff. But yeah, great comp right here. If you've never come across this comp, I'm sure you can find it out there, and it's a good album to keep in your car for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the cover of God of Thunder alone is worth the price of admission. They just kill that song. It sounds great.
That's great. I have a funny story about that, if you don't mind me telling it really quick.
Go ahead.
So when I was in high school, that's when I got this, and a few of my friends that I hung out with from work, they were not metalheads. And they used to make fun of me all the time because I had this in my car all the time. And God of Thunder was track number 2, so they'd have to hear it and just the way LG Petrov sings "God of Thunder," rock and roll, like they would just make fun of me all the time because they're like, "What the fuck are you listening to, Matt? This is not music. You're an asshole." And I was like, "Well, yeah, I'm an asshole, but that has nothing to do with me listening to Entombed, you pricks." So, it's just a not so fond memory from high school of non-metalhead friends making fun of me because I listened to Entombed a lot back then. So
I gotta say though, Entombed, I did not care for Clandestine. I didn't like that. I didn't like Nikki Anderson's vocals.
I don't like it either.
I didn't. The songs structurally are a mess. They're a complete confused mess. But
cheers,
I mean,
everybody.
Cheers. I pulled this. Obviously, it's class. This is if you get one with the black sticker stuck to the album, that is an OG press.
I got
this. Yeah, I got this at the exact same day I bought this. I bought it on the same day. So yeah, totally classic. And of the death metal era, it's this album and this EP, Crawl. I love this Crawl. It's got the singer from Nirvana 2002 singing for LG, and it's really good. They did Crawl, Forsaken, Bitter Loss. And it would have been cool if the guy from Nirvana 2002 sang on Clandestine instead of Nikki. But this is a really great comp. I've been trying to find this on vinyl, and whenever it turns up, it's not cheap. I have to live with my OG cassette.
There's some reissues with those songs on it. I think I could be wrong on that, but
okay, Alan.
All right. So next one I had to pull. I did not realize this was on Earache until I was looking at the discography early, because it's actually on an imprint they used for a while called Wicked. And looking at the Wicked roster, it doesn't look like they used it for a whole lot of
Wicked World. Wicked World,
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so they put out a little bit of stuff, but it wasn't used extensively. But they did use it for one album, the sixth album, I believe, by Mexico's The Chasm. This is Chasm of Retribution. It's a dark cover, so it's a little hard to. There we go, a little better image of it.
Chasm rule.
Yeah, the Chasm, just incredibly consistent. After the first album, kind of working the kinks out, they got very tight, very fast. Every album is just quality stuff.
Obscure and weird. It's obscure and weird. Cool. It's
very dark. Has a doomy aura about it, but very heavy. Very this when people talk cavernous death metal, this is what I always think of. Yeah, this just really sounds like it's recorded somewhere in the bowels of the earth, and every album they did was just very solid quality stuff. They were one of the few death metal bands to the early 2000s where as soon as they put out an album, I was going to pick it up.
The Chasm rules. They're great. The Iron Maiden of death metal.
They are.
You very rarely hear anybody say anything bad about the Chasm. Corchado's always had a reputation as a really nice guy. Of course, he'd played in other bands earlier, with Incantation and
Cenotaph. Yep.
Yeah, and people, like those and harken back to those as well. But Chasm, just outstanding band, and they did have this one Earache release. And again, it's in that period where Earache wasn't really doing a lot with extreme metal too. By the 2004, when you look at their discography, it's looking really weird. But lo and behold, there is a Chasm title right there.
Daniel was really hoping. He was really hoping when they signed to Wicked World that it was the big push they needed. He felt it was the biggest label they'd ever been on, and he was really hoping that it would push them over the edge and get them in more death metal people collections, but it never really happened. I know that's always been a bone of contention with him for sure.
Yeah, and that was something I was going to ask, not just because this was the only Earache release, but about the Chasm in general. They seem to hop record labels almost with every album. Do either of you have any insight into what the deal was? Because it was a quality band by the third or fourth album. They had a strong cult following. It always seemed odd to me that they never found a label to call home for very long.
Yeah, I don't know.
From what I heard, it was because they always signed one album contracts with all of these little labels, and the main guy behind the Chasm, like
Daniel.
it was really important to him to maintain the rights for the music, and
Mhm.
big record labels don't want to take that kind of
No.
a risk. So
Okay.
they would try them out for one album here or there, and then he would move on because, he holds on to the ownership of his music like a lot of other bands don't. And that's why that's why the Chasm was never on a big, huge label for very long.
And I think he had a lot of expectations going into it too. He wanted
Yeah.
the label to put in just as much as he did to his music and what that band did live and stuff. And
Yeah.
of course, that's never going to happen. Labels are going to do as little as possible, put out your stuff and hope it takes off. And if you're a bigger label and it doesn't happen right away, as the years went on, I think less and less labels wanted to spend money to build bands up. They would just soon arrive at a band that already had a story behind them, And
yeah,
I think
you have
of
to prove yourself before
Yeah.
you get the money behind you to push you to that next level. And if you don't prove yourself as being economically viable, it's not going to happen. So if you're a pain in the ass to work with, you're going to be moving on to some other label. So
yeah, something else, and that's since the financial angles come up. That's something that seemed to play a role in not the demise of death metal, but there was definitely death metal kind of crashed when you got into the mid and late '90s, and
black metal killed it for a while.
black metal was part of it, but the financial aspects are discussed a bit in the Choosing Death volume. If folks haven't read this one, it's a nice history of the death metal scene. And they talk, there in the chapters of where these bands start really falling off. That one problem from the record label perspective, and even from some of the producers' perspective, was that these bands, as they were getting to making that third and fourth album, they just hit a real brick wall in terms of how much they could sell. And at the same time, it's like what you're doing on album number 3 really isn't any different from what you did on album number 1. So it's not like you're changing your sound or evolving. You're not making a better album. But the first album, we made that for $5,000. This third album that you just put out, we spent $50,000 recording, and you're kind of in the same place in terms of popularity and sales. And it started to sour labels and executives on really sticking with a lot of death metal bands that it's like, we can pump extra money into this, but we're not selling any extra units. The bands are going to sell this much, and it stops. There's one, I think it was somebody from Roadrunner is cited in the book as saying it kind of became unfun to sign these death metal bands because you already knew exactly how it was going to play out. You were going to send them to this studio to work with this producer and get this guy to do this cover, and they were going to sell X number of units, and that was it. It became just it was cut and dried. There was no chance that these bands were going to go over the top and break through that barrier, and so they just kind of like, this isn't going anywhere. We're treading water. Hey, what are Machine Head and Pantera doing? Maybe we should check that out instead. And death metal, really withered there for a bit.
Sure.
So you're absolutely right, Marty. The fans were turning to something new and quote unquote more extreme with black metal.
Scary.
Yeah, something that seems scary. That was one that Entombed is showing up on Sweden's Top of the Pops and things like that. They're not lethal or scary anymore. Guys in corpse paint burning down churches and killing each other. That was scary. So the fans' attention went one way. The record labels could not quite seem to crack the code to make it bigger. And so the finances were definitely a part of the problem too.
Well, really, I mean, there's a ceiling that you hit when you're an underground metal band anyway, no matter what you are. I mean, a good example of that is Tobias Forge and his bands Repugnant and
We're
Ghost.
good.
There's a reason why Repugnant, flatlined where it did, and why Ghost is on MTV and the radio. I mean, there's a ceiling that you hit. So if you're not going to change you know, your expectations have to be in line with what your band is. I mean,
Yeah,
you're not gonna
And
you're
I gotta
not
say
gonna be a millionaire being a death metal band. It's not gonna happen.
that Repugnant stuff is great. That Draped in Cerecloth demo is awesome, and their album is awesome. And then Ghost, why I got their first album, listened to it. I heard a lot of Blue Oyster Cult on it. I'm listening to it and I'm thinking, you know, this isn't all that great. The songwriting's okay. And then as they moved on and got bigger and bigger and bigger, I hate to say it, but metalheads in general are an artsy craftsy bunch. They like masks. They like stuff with horns on it. They like, you know, corpse paint. And what is really, I listened on Sirius XM today. There was a Ghost song, Rats. I think the name of the song was Rats. I was listening to it. I'm like, this is about as vanilla, boring a song I've ever heard. Why is this band so big? It's because they've got a shtick.
there's a gimmick.
That stuff, people gravitate towards that shit.
Yep.
Well, it's a shtick and it's catchy and it's not that threatening. Not really. You can understand the lyrics, and that's one thing most people don't understand. Like those of us that are into underground metal and stuff, the lyrics aren't that important. We care about how the song sounds and how it makes us feel. 99% of the world wants to understand the music that they hear. So you've got a band like Ghost where you can understand the lyrics and you can sing along to the chorus and it gets stuck in your head and that's why you like it. You can't say that about any underground metal band. That's just not a thing. You know, we are a minority in the grand scheme of popular music. So, you know, that's why Repugnant was done when it was done, and Ghost went on to buy Tobias Forge a giant mansion in Sweden. So
and that's you know, more power to him, man. And like I said, I listened to the Ghost song today and I wasn't bothered by it. I mean, it was fine. I was trying to, like, if you took away the band's image, the gimmick, will this be able to stand on its own? I don't know. I really don't know. I think the gimmick got, it's like Kiss the best band in the world. Absolutely not. They were sloppy average at best,
but they're fun. But they're fun to listen to.
And it was the shtick. It was people, the mystery behind that band got people drawn into it enough to get to know the music. Like, yeah, this music's good. And the same, I think it's just, you know, whoever said Ghost is the new Kiss. In a lot of ways, that's true. Other than, you know, he was outed. You know, he lost his anonymity with the court case, but I don't know. I mean, if they didn't have the gimmick, would they have been as popular? Probably not, but it doesn't matter because they did, and they're popular, and that's fine. And if people like them, great. It doesn't offend me. It doesn't bother me. The song was fine. It just seemed a little average to me, but you know, whatever.
I'm a huge Ghost fan. I love Ghost. This is a Ghost poster, so
right on.
If folks dig them, that's okay.
No, and it doesn't. And I'm not bad mouth. I'm just saying. I just, you know.
Yeah.
I heard their first album, and I'd like, God, I hear a lot of Blue Oyster Cult in this, a lot.
Yeah. But yeah, Matt's point is, you know, very on point here.
Absolutely.
That these extreme forms of metal, you can only do so much with them. You're only going to attract so big a crowd. You know, there was another quote in here from another label executive that says, in a way, it's a small miracle some of these death metal bands sold as many copies as they did. But you can only push. That's only going to attract so big an audience. I think Digby Pearson, you know, he's interviewed in it in several places. The Name of Humans. He's like, yeah, you know, we got a little naive thinking that some of these bands were going to, you know, start breaking into, you know, platinum sales and stuff like that. He's like, looking back, that was, you know, really unrealistic of us to think we could really accrue an audience that big, you know, with a sound that extreme. It's not going to happen.
And that's one of the reasons too why, like, I have a very unpopular opinion in not related to Earache, but it kind of is. But the rift between Noise Records and Tom G. Warrior and Celtic Frost. Like, I agree with Carl Walterbach and Noise Records in that argument between those two more than I do with Tom G. Warrior, because dude, Celtic Frost is not a rock radio band. They never have been, but he expected rock radio money to be behind him, and he was always pissed off that Noise was putting all of their money and attention behind Halloween and not Celtic Frost. And I was like, well, dude,
which had rock radio potential.
yeah. So it's like, I mean, a record label is a business. They are investing in bands. Investing in a band is like investing in the stock market. It is a risk, and you're not going to put the same kind of money behind Celtic Frost as you are behind Halloween. You're not going to put the same kind of money behind Bolt Thrower as you are Entombed's Wolverine Blues. You know, I mean, there's differences there. There's potential that you have to be aware of. So yeah, I don't.
Because honestly, it's the bands like like if you look at Noise International or Noise Records, it's bands like Halloween that sell a shit ton of albums that pay for all the rest of the bands that don't.
Exactly. Like
if you had more bands like that paying for the other bands, I mean, that's these bands need to realize their place and say, you know what, maybe I should sit down and shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
Make
and
my
Marty,
album.
you probably have a lot more insight to that than most other people because you run a record label, and we all know who your most successful popular band is on your label, and I'm sure the money that you get from that band lets you put a lot of this other stuff out there. And if you didn't have that money from that one band, would you be able to put as much other stuff out there?
No.
The
credit card debt would never go away, ever.
So the take-home message here, Marty, is make sure you keep Molly Hatchet on the books and happy.
Yes, exactly. And it's just, and I get why bands are mad, but on the same, I read that we're getting off of this Damn the Machine.
We're so off topic now. Oh my God.
Dave Gelke. I mean, it's like Walter Bach. I was shocked at how much he treated some bands like shit that ended up being huge bands. But on the same token, like Matt said, it's a business. You don't make money if you're nice to everybody and give everybody what they want. You're not going to make money. You're going to.
And was he really a dick though, or was
it
that
he was kind of a dick to some of them?
I mean, he was kind of a dick, but at the same time, like, show me the sales, show me the money. You know, you have the freedom to record whatever music you want, but if I'm only going to make $2,000 from selling your record, but this band going to make $500,000, that's the band that's going to get my main attention. And you could probably say the same thing to bring it back to Earache. You could say the same thing about Digby. I mean, he put a lot of time and effort and money into certain bands, and then other ones he didn't. And a lot of bands give him a lot of crap. And yeah, he's a shitty dude. He's ripped off a lot of bands, but if a band isn't holding their end of the bargain, like if you're complaining about not getting proper royalties, but you never went on tour, well, yeah, you're not going to get paid. You know, it's a business, and you have to understand that side of things and know that just because you wrote a record that's good, that doesn't entitle you to 100% of profits. That's not the way it works.
And
there are so many other cogs in the wheel that are out there. Your record, your music is 20% of the equation at most, if you're lucky. And that's what most bands and most people don't understand.
Tom G needs to look at MTV. At the same time, Halloween's "I Want Out" was blowing up MTV. Celtic Frost "Cherry Orchards" was on as well. And now you do the math of which song is better.
There you go.
You do the math on which song is gonna see more airplay. It's not fucking "Cherry Orchards." It's just not. Fucking stupid.
Indeed.
Anyway, I think it's my turn.
It is your turn, Mary. So let's get back on track here and see another one of your favorite Earache releases.
I had to pick a Napalm Death release, and going through the early Napalm Death catalog, I really realized that they're kind of placeholders for me. That might be sacrilegious as well. I don't hate them, but Scum and From Enslavement to Obliteration, I always liked them for the novelty of them. But it wasn't until this album, Mentally Murdered, that they actually started to write longer songs, a little bit better songs. And the lineup at this point, this is Lee Dorian's last release with them. You got Bill Steer from Carcass in there. Isn't it amazing how Mick Harris is looking a little bit like Castile in this picture?
Oh my God. Castillo lives.
Castillo in human flesh.
lives.
Now
There
I
he
can't
is.
unsee it.
It's the fucking stash. It's the stash, and of course, Shane with his
All right,
hair helmet.
we gotta talk to Barbecutioner about that. I think he
Yeah,
owes
I see where the inspiration. I see where the inspiration comes from
Holy
here. But
shit.
this album's only got 4 songs on it, mini LP, and this is how Earache put this out. I bought this like this. It's just as a promo sleeve. They basically shrunk down the LP back jacket to unreadable proportions. But this to me is where Napalm started to get shit figured out. Yeah, they had a cool, crusty sound. But here the songs start getting longer and they start to go places. They get a little more structure to them. There's a little bit more song dynamics happening. Song building is starting to get figured out on this album. This is where I start to kind of like them. Again, I appreciate the Scum and the from enslavement eras. It's for their contribution to the genre, but Napalm's never been my favorite grind band. And once they became more of a death metal band, yeah, they got a lot better. And I've got a shit ton of their albums. Some of them I like a lot, some I don't care for so much, but there's no denying they put the whole genre on the map for sure.
Yep.
And this was a good start for that, for sure. For sure. Yeah, it's a good album.
I just had to
You know
put that
what,
up for Pat, 'cause I saw his comment.
Teddy Spaghetti. It's hard to beat Napalm Death live. You know what? Today, as I was eating my dinner, I watched Napalm Death performance from this year's Bloodstock Fest. Barney's vocals are gone. They're completely roached. It was just as high end, and his low end was pretty commanding, but it's roached. It's gone. He could kind of do a shouting thing, but that's really about it. The band sounded okay.
That's all he does now is shout. He can't growl anymore.
He tries to growl, and his voice is just completely, utterly gone. It's kind of a bummer. But anyway, Matt.
Well, we got way off topics.
But it was fun.
I'm gonna go with the number 2 album I was gonna show like an hour and a half ago, it seems like. But this was the second Earache album I ever bought, and that was Masters of Misery, the Black Sabbath tribute.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, this was a really good comp. So many good bands on this. I mean, Cathedral playing Solitude and Wheels of Confusion.
Yeah.
You can't beat that.
No.
Sleep playing Snowblind.
Perfect.
You've got Godflesh doing Zero the Hero. Yeah, why not? Sure. You've got Anal Cunt playing Killing Yourself to Live. Perfect, right? I mean, there's just so much
live by
great
those
stuff on
words.
here. And all right, so Ultraviolence doing their cover of Paranoid on this.
They're gross. Didn't like them.
All right. Well, we'll get to Ultraviolence in a bit, but everybody watching this right now, however many people are watching this, if you have not heard the Ultraviolence cover of Paranoid, stop watching this, go listen to 15 seconds of that song, and then come right back and tell me what you think, because it is by far the most obnoxious, gross cover ever made by any band ever of all time. And it is so laughably and painfully offensive that I kind of like it. Like, I kind of love the Ultraviolence cover of Paranoid because it's so painful. It's one of those kind of things that if you're throwing a party and you want to get rid of everybody, like, all right, guys, the party's over. Get the fuck out of my house. You can put on the Ultraviolence cover of Paranoid and everyone will be gone before that song ends. So like, go listen to that. Marty, Ellen, if you haven't heard it, I'll hold the fort for 15 seconds while you go listen to it.
I got a couple Ultraviolence tapes back in the Worm Gear days for promos, and that shit was bad. I couldn't. I like industrial music.
I don't mind Ultraviolence because I like a lot of electronic music, and I do like some of the stuff that guy did, but when he is bad, he is really bad. And oh my God, his cover of Paranoid is so painful, but it's like when you got a sore in your mouth and you keep tonguing it, that's Paranoid.
I'm doing that right now. I bit my lip.
Well, you're listening to Ultraviolence and doing the cover of
In
Paranoid
spirit.
right now, if that's what you're doing.
Teddy
Anytime you
Spaghetti.
bite your tongue, that's Ultraviolence doing Paranoid. Like, you have to hear it. You have to, because it is so bad.
Teddy Spaghetti is asking, is Impetigo on that comp?
No, they are not. Impetigo was never on Earache, as far as I know. But
I don't think they were.
Iron Monkey is on here, and Scorn is on here, and Pitch Shifter, and Old, and Confessor, and Fudge Tunnel. So many good bands doing Sabbath on this. Like, this is a really great Black Sabbath comp, and you can get this fairly cheap, I'm sure. I mean, I don't think this is a very well-known comp, so you could probably get this pretty cheap out there.
Yeah.
Highly
Matt,
recommend it.
what song does Confessor do on there? I don't remember.
Confessor does Hole in the Sky.
Okay.
Yeah. So there you go.
Okay. Alan.
All right. Since Marty brought up Napalm, I might as well show my Napalm. My pick's a very odd one, and I don't have a physical copy of this, so I'm just going to show a picture dialed up on the phone here. I'm certainly this one. I'm not claiming it's their best release or even a very seminal release by them, but it's a sentimental favorite. It's the Death by Manipulation compilation. So it's got 3 EPs, including the Mentally Murdered materials on it.
Yep.
And I just have a soft spot for that one because it's the first Napalm Death I heard, and it was a blind buy at a mall. It was probably a Camelot Records or Music World, one of their kind of Camelot competitors. Let's see, do we lose Matt, or did he just
He's going potty or something. I don't know.
Okay, he'll be back, no worries. Yeah, and Napalm Death, it was a name I had heard a few times here and there. Sounded promising. Nobody that I knew in the very small rural town where I lived had anything by them. And on one of our rare excursions to the big city, was at the record store and was looking at the tapes. I was like, yeah, I kind of want to check them out, but $10, that's a whole lot of lunch money. So they had this tape, and for whatever reason it had just come out, but it was on sale. It was like $6.99. I was just like, okay, and that's the whole reason I picked this over the other Napalm titles they had. This one was about $3 cheaper. So I had no idea it was a newer release. I had no idea it was meant to just be a collection of EPs from stuff. It was like, I want to hear this band. I've got $7 to spare. So yeah, I brought it back, and I'm not, again, it's not the best or the worst stuff they ever did, but it's the one I've just got a soft spot for. It was for a week or so there, I was the celebrity in high school amongst the handful of kids that liked extreme stuff, because I was sitting there playing it on a Walkman in study hall. I'm like, dude, what you listening to today? I'm like, Napalm Death. They're like, you've got something by Napalm?
Yeah, I got some Napalm Death on. No big
like,
deal.
why, yes, I do. Check this out. And I mean, it sounds silly, but I mean, seriously, their jaws were on the table in the cafeteria, just like, holy shit, dude, because everybody had been wanting to check this band out, and nobody had picked anything up by them. So it made the rounds. Everybody was just like, can I please borrow that? It's like, dude, just give me a blank tape. I'll make you a copy of it. Bring it to you tomorrow. And yeah, I know there was one particular guy, I don't even remember his name, but I made him the copy. He listened to it. He came back the next day. He's just like, can I please buy that tape from you? I will buy. The copy's great, thanks. I want the original tape. Can I buy it from you? I'm just like, no. Like, I'm not getting back to the big city for probably 2 months. I don't have a chance to replace this. So sorry, I want to hang on to it. The tape is long gone with most of my other cassettes, but yeah, for Napalm, like you, Marty, some of their albums are pretty good. Some of their albums I can do without. There are a lot of their albums I've never heard. I do not know their whole discography, not even close. But Death by Manipulation is always the sentimental favorite. My other funny little story about it was that for a couple of years before that, my running joke at Christmas was to ask one particular aunt for a Napalm Death CD. She's a very sweet lady, very nice. but she's very so not an extreme metal kind of person. And so as I was like, oh Alan, can I get you a CD? Like she got me like a Rolling Stone CD one year, and just like, gee, thanks. Let's just put that over there somewhere. And they'll just be like, what do you want? It's just like, will you get me a record? She's like, yeah, sure. Who do you want? Napalm Death. And you could just see like the look on her face trying to process the fact that, is that really the name of a band? She's like, yep, that's what I want. She never got it for me.
I told you, Nick. I told you, Nick. Come on.
So there's my take on Napalm Death. So Marty, let's pass it over to you.
All right. Well, I'm still going down the Grind Crusher comp, and Filthy Christians were on my radar. These guys are a Swedish hardcore / grind band. This is Mosh number 17, so it's pretty early on in the catalog. I really kind of like this album sounds kind of like crap. I mean, it's kind of murky sounding, but it's grindcore with kind of like the funny thrash attitude. You got songs like Party and Fight for Your Right, Extremely Bad Breath. If you're hardcore, I'm not. Old but not so wise. I mean, there's a bit of humor mixed in with this stuff, but it's pretty solid grind. It doesn't sound English at all. Like I said, these guys are Swedes, but pretty solid. I liked it. I haven't spun it in a while. I listened to it a little bit today, getting ready for this, and I enjoyed it. I mean, it's old, murky, sloppy grind from Sweden. Good stuff.
Good deal.
And Matt is back. Get you in position here.
So while I was urinating, I assume everybody talked about Napalm Death, right? So we can move on from Napalm Death. So
Absolutely.
I had them pulled out, so I'm just going to show them really quick. I had Fear, Emptiness, Despair. This was my entry point with Napalm Death, just because I heard them on the Mortal Kombat soundtrack, and I was like, holy shit, Twist the Knife Slowly, that song rules. So Fear, Emptiness, Despair, I have a sweet spot for this album. I love it. But my favorite Napalm Death is Scum, as well as Utopia Banished. That's always a toss-up between those two records for what I'm in the mood for. So we are done with Napalm Death talk, apparently. So let's go to something silly, which I'm pretty sure you and Marty would not have shown, but anyone who watches The Dark Path, you guys know I love Dungeon Synth, so why not talk about the godfather of Dungeon Synth? And we got some Mortis, however you want to say it. So I pulled out Crypt of the Wizard, the Stargate, which is by far the worst album cover of all time. Look at it. But this album rules. I love it. And then The Smell of Rain. A lot of people hate this record. I love it. It's one of my favorite Mortis records. And The Grudge, which is when he kind of went full industrial metal by the time he did this record. But to me, I love Mortis. I've been a fan of his since before he was on Earache. I love all of his early Dungeon Synth stuff. I love his Earache era. And I haven't really followed much of his newer stuff beyond that, but I really, really liked this era right here. So Marty missed it, but we're talking about Mortis right now. So
right on.
I pulled out that and the Cod piece.
The Stargate, yeah. That's actually quite a symphonic record. It's
great.
It's quite advanced for where he came. For a lot of his early shit's improvisation, and that album there is very thought out and very complex. Actually, it's a good.
It's a very complex, well done album. He's got Sarah Jezebel Diva from Cradle of Filth doing the female vocals, and it's just a very epic album. It's really the one album I recommend to anybody who isn't familiar with Dungeon Synth but is curious about it. I say listen to The Stargate by Mortis. Just forget about that album cover. Listen to that record because it's the best that genre ever did. But one of my favorite Mortis albums, Mortis, however you want to pronounce it, I love The Smell of Rain, man. I love this album so much. See, Lee understands. He's with me. He knows. He's with it. He's hip. This album is such a weird, like, post-industrial, pre-dark wave kind of a retro album, but it's great. I mean, it's just very catchy and very depressing, but it's solid. And it's weird that Earache signed Mortis in the first place. Like, I don't even know why they signed him, but Mortis made $0 being on Earache Records, and that's why he left, created his own record label, and is doing what he does now. But
And then now is back to Era 1 because Dungeon Synth is hot and popular again.
exactly, Mortis has got to eat. Those prosthetics aren't cheap. Those noses, they fall apart after a while. Cod pieces aren't free, everybody. You got to eat.
Mm-hmm.
You got to eat.
But if you use the right alloys, it will last forever. A cod piece will last forever.
I don't know though. I mean, you go to the little trolls room a few times, you get some splashback on there, it starts to varnish.
Yeah, you seem to know a
These are
little
just
bit
buy a
more
new
about
one,
cod
scrub that off.
pieces than the regular human being does there, Marty.
Roll pea is highly corrosive, I've been told.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I love all eras of Mortis. I think the Dungeon Synth is great. I think his weird dark wave album is really fun. Mm-hmm. And when he first started getting into industrial metal with this one, this is where he kind of started to lose me. But this is probably the best of that era of records. But by and large, the albums he put out on Earache, I think, are the most accessible. They're the easiest to get, and they're some of the best. So if you don't know your Mortis, you can start right here.
Yep. Yeah, they're cool listens. I haven't played them in forever, but yeah, I used when you're in the mood for something like Crypt of the Wizard, yeah, it's cool stuff to check out. It's different, but it's got a place.
He's the artist Wizard. All other Dungeon Synth artists aspire to be at this point,
Yeah. And Crypt of the Wizard is a compilation of like unreleased stuff and just like random ideas that he had from his early days. But I think all of that stuff that he did was perfected on the Stargate. It's just so unfortunate that album cover is so horrible.
It's bad. It's so dumb.
It's so bad. And I think it really pushed a lot of people off of trying Dungeon Synth and Mortis in particular, just because that album cover is so bad. But if you listen to that record, it is fantastic. It's the best Dungeon Synth album ever made, in my opinion. So,
just like metal fans will be attracted to the right gimmick, they will be driven away by the wrong gimmick, and that's the wrong gimmick on the cover of that cover. That's not the way to go.
Can we just appreciate it one more time? Just one more time.
Zoom it in there, Marty. Let's gaze at the Stargate thingy. Not me. There you go.
Yeah. Just take it in, people. Take it in. I wish I had this on vinyl so you wouldn't get the glare. But
if you put David Bowie's face over what he says, it would look like a promo for Labyrinth. Somebody out there is laughing hysterically at that.
So good.
It looks like he's got the door knocker from the Elder as above the belt. It's very nice. All right, Alan.
Sabbath wishes he had that cod piece.
He does.
I have that cod piece. I don't know what you're talking about.
More artists should try to nail the D&D Peter Pan vibe. Yes.
Even as I can fly.
Well played.
All right. Well, I think it's time to mention another Earache classic. We've talked about Napalm. Lee Dorian wasn't always in Napalm. He moved on to other things. Some people might say for better, some for worse.
Well, hey, what do you got to say?
Well, we got to go get lost in the forest of Equilibrium. Cathedral's first album. This, for me, it's the only Cathedral album I really like. And I'm sure there's some I have not heard, and the others tend to have songs here and there that I like. The Forest works pretty well. this one came out about the time I was graduating high school, I think. I just remember I kept seeing it here and there, and just like, I kind of interesting looking, but it was obviously, kind of different looking too. So it was a while before I actually checked it out. But yeah, amongst the Cathedral discography, this is the one time I felt like you got a really good balance between being heavy, but having enough of those kind of groovy psychedelic influences worked in that the songs came together well. I always felt like later albums, they had a hard time nailing that balance down again for whatever reason. And again, that's just my opinion. They obviously had a long, and successful career with the band. But yeah, Forest of Equilibrium is the one Cathedral album I will still go back to and play from time to time and be like, yeah, I can dig this. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it was another big, success for Earache. It was something different at the time. Doom metal was not popular at that time whatsoever. It was almost the opposite of what was popular with death metal. Instead of being very aggressive and very technical, Doom is often very slow and moody, and
I disagree. I disagree with you, Aaron.
Okay,
Alan,
go ahead.
sorry. I think Doom, just like any other subgenre, it had its place and it had its fans, just like grindcore did, and just like thrash did, and death and black.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why Earache signed Cathedral, because they knew they needed a Doom band. So that's why they signed Cathedral. They couldn't get Candlemass. Paradise Lost had signed to the record label down the street, Peaceville. So they had to go with Cathedral. So I don't think that that Doom wasn't popular. It's just that it wasn't as popular as some other stuff, but it still had its fans, still had its credence, still had its worth at the time.
It could be the peaceful sound for Doom. Now you're right there. Bands like Paradise Lost and My Dying Bride, they were definitely hitting their stride. But they were really on the death Doom side of the spectrum. There were a lot of traditional Doom bands at the time that couldn't get much interest or much traction. There were a couple of exceptions. Candlemass was the big one.
This came out in 1991. What else was Doom doing in 1991? I don't have a Wikipedia on my brain at the time, but 1991 seems like that's right at the forefront of when Doom was really picking up. I think 91, 92.
Oh, you still had bands like Saint Vitus had been at it for a while, Pentagram, but yeah, they hadn't gained a lot of traction outside of maybe the Candlemass, and Trouble, had a following, of course, to an extent, but then Trouble was changing gears. There were some smaller bands like, now I'm not sure I'm thinking of bands like Count Raven and Warhorse. I'm not sure they had an album out that early, but they were on the scene, but they may have gotten their first albums out a year or two later. So yeah, but as those were coming out,
Pentagram was putting stuff out at that time. I mean, they weren't popular, but
yeah, they were Pentagram was kind of in between albums around 91. Review Your Choices came out in much later. Be Forewarned came out, I think, in 93, and that album got no attention, sadly. Yeah.
For me, that album, when that came out, I bought it on tape, went home, played it, said, man, this sucks. The vocals suck. This is Lee Dorian. Oh, fuck. I broke the tape, took it back to Camelot Music and said, this tape is defective. It was the last one. Can I get something different? I kind of regret it now. I listen to it now. I like it. And it's also notable there's a member of Acid Rain in that band. And there's also a member of Penance and Dream Death, drummer, also in that band. But that album, at least, and I do like the Soul Sacrifice EP quite a bit. That's a good one. And I also like the album End Time. That one's really good. But once they start getting a little poppier and albums that came out after that, holy crap, it's it's rough. It's hard. But it grew on me over time. I still have those tapes. I don't have Force the Equilibrium. I need to pick up a copy eventually, but it was a tough sell in the days, the early grind days when I was just getting into that stuff. I'm like, okay, this is Lee Dorian. I don't know that I like this so much, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely wasn't for everybody. All right, Marty, what you got next?
Okay, this is a big album for me, and this is by far, this is not a classic Earache release, but I love this mini LP. It rules. And when you think of industrialized metal, early Pitch Shifter crushes. I mean, obviously they're suckling at the teat of Godflesh. There's no doubt, but they did it better. They just did it better. They had more of a crusty vibe to them than Godflesh did. And this Submit mini LP, I mean, I love the first album, Industrial. It's fucking great. Really dismal and crusty, plodding, industrialized metal. This here, full of samples, an obvious drum machine. But one thing about this album is they really up the ante with super catchy songs. Godflesh was big on repetition, which worked to their favor at times. At other times, it was a hindrance. But with Pitch Shifter, they just focused on really catchy songs, and the plot of the drum machine is just a really good mix. Gritter, this whole thing is good. It's just a great EP. And also the last album, you should not go any further than this one here. This is Desensitized. This came out after this one.
They went in such a weird direction after that one. Oh my god.
But this album still maintains the early Pitch Shifter feel. They're starting to get a better production. They're getting more money behind them. They're starting to experiment a little bit more with a little more of a light instead of the darkness. This is still a really good album. After this album, things go off the rails, and they ended up embracing dubstep and all sorts of other more modern techno type styles. The singer,
they were trying to be like Orgy and bands like that.
Yeah, the singer started, he dropped the pitch shifter. Like this stuff, their first album is pretty well pitch shifted. This one's kind of half and half, just really sick low vocals. This here, it's even a little less, but after this, he drops it completely and it goes a lot more commercial. And I watched recently some live recent-ish pitch shifter stuff. It's fucking awful. It's like, I can't believe this is the same band that put out Industrial. Well, it goes Submit, Industrial, then I don't know, whichever. I thought Industrial was first. It was a demo, then Industrial, then Submit, but I could be wrong. But yeah, if anybody's got a spare copy of Submit on vinyl, let me know, because I'm a potential buyer, just so you know.
Industrial was put out through Peaceville, and then they signed to Earache, and that's when Submit came out. So I always thought Industrial was first. Too. Yeah. But it doesn't matter. I mean, those early Pitch Shifter albums are absolutely fantastic, and
they are fucking great.
So anyone who loves Industrial needs those albums, like all of them.
It's just a good blend.
Except for Infotainment and www.pitchshifter.com and whatever they did after that. That's when they went weird. But
all right, Matt, you're back.
Me? Well, if we're on the industrial side of things,
I know which one you're going to show. I know which one you got.
What? You know what? That was the second one I was going to show. But I'll go ahead. We'll go ahead and talk about that. Why not?
Let's talk about it. It's great. It's
fantastic. I mean, dudes from Obituary and
Donald Tardy, Trevor Perez, Mitch Harris, and
Napalm Death guys. Yeah. Yep. Napalm Death and Obituary getting together and doing the best industrial metal album ever recorded.
It's better than Screw. It's better than anything else, really.
Dare I say? Am I just too drunk right now? Am I going to say this is better than Ministry? I shouldn't go that.
It's not that good.
I shouldn't go that far. But oh my god, is this good? So
it's different. It's different than Ministry. Like you listen to that first Screw album. The first Screw album is like trying to completely mimic A Mind's a Terrible Thing to Taste. This is way better. The songs are way more interesting. The riffs are way better. You could tell there's an old school death metal feel to it and grind feel to it. It's really good.
It is the perfect sound of death metal dudes playing industrial metal. Like that's exactly what it sounds like. And what you're picturing in your head with that description is what Embedded sounds like. So I mean, it's got riffs for days. It's crushingly heavy. It is so good. This is a great album. Great album.
But I just discovered today, I actually listened to this album today. They've got an album out that came out in 2019.
Basic Instructions Before Leaving Earth was
Yep.
the one that came out before that one.
Oh, that came out before this?
No. Well, all right. So there was this one, and then there was Basic Instructions Before Leaving Earth, which came out in 98, 99, somewhere around there.
It came out in 2019.
That must be a repress, because Basic Instructions came out in the early 2000s, I'm pretty sure, and that album is garbage.
It's fucking terrible. I couldn't believe it. It still has Mitch Harris, and Shane Embury, and then two other dudes.
Yeah, and it doesn't have the same feeling, the same passion. The passion is missing on that one.
You're right. 1999.
Yeah,
those are the only two listed on Metal Archives.
This is all you need, people. This is all you need. This one right here.
The music is decent. It's a lot more commercial. It's decent, but the singer really brings it to a level of commerciality that's really tough to stomach.
Mm-hmm.
But the embedded is fucking great. Totally great.
It's so good. It's so, like, Nick, Thralls of Metal, if you're still watching, if you are not aware of this one, I know you're my industrial metal buddy. You gotta check this out, man. So,
hey, I'm your industrial metal buddy too.
Well, I can have more than one buddy, Marty. Come on, man.
No, you can only have one.
All right, well then I pick you, you bald bastard.
Those bald guys gotta stick together. That Nick guy's got too much hair. Fucking guy,
it's too fashionable, and I can't handle it. It makes
perfectly
me
coiffed facial hair. Come on.
Yeah. So does that count as one of my picks, or can I show the one that I was really wanting?
You can show whatever. I figured you were going Meat Hook Seed. Go ahead.
Go right ahead. Let's see another.
All right. Misery Loves Company was where I was gonna go. Ugh. You guys ever listen to this one?
Wasn't a fan.
Don't think so.
A fan of this one? Come on, man.
No.
I Want to Kiss Your Boots. That song slams. It dumps. It's good. Good album though. I enjoy this one a lot. I like Misery Loves Company a lot, but Meat Hook Seed is better. So
yeah.
That's it. That's all I'm gonna say about that.
Okay. Alan.
All right. Yeah. I don't have much of a dog in the fight on industrial metal stuff. It was, that stuff got very popular about the time I was in college. I tried several times to get into it. Never really found my groove with the industrial bands, but that's very cool that y'all are into them. Just, I can't really chime in on those. So I'll shift it in a different direction. We had a request for a certain Floridian death metal band that was on Earache as we started up the show tonight. This band was always notable for, a couple of things. They had more of a sci-fi bent compared to the sort of, blood, gore, splatter, violence. And they also were sort of pioneering in their use of keyboards for death metal. So we're talking about Nocturnus. Now, I believe, I'm sorry, I forgot who requested Nocturnus shout out earlier, but I think they were asking about The Key. Key is a great album. It's the album most folks gravitate towards. I always have a soft spot for Thresholds, however. So I pulled this one off the shelf. This is the second album. Yes, it has a weird production. I've heard it referred to, the guys over at, the Radical Research podcast, Jeff and Hunter, refer to it as HVAC metal because it sounds like it was recording in a heat duct somewhere. But that aside, Nocturnus always did a very good job of just writing these little mini epic stories that you had a really nice sci-fi fantasy bend to them, where you could just really get into them, just doing little things with the sound effects. The first time I ever heard Nocturnus, it was on a college radio station, and they started playing this song. I think I missed who it was by. They may not even have said, but you just heard this, kind of like bubbling sound, like something starting to submerge underwater, and like the air bubbles are going back up to the surface, and the synths and the music starts to catch in. And I was just like, that is so fucking cool, because you could just picture in your mind. You didn't have to understand the lyrics, but you knew exactly what kind of vibe they were going for, what they were kind of telling this little epic tale. It was the song Aquatica off thresholds here. And they were just always really good at that. They used keyboards at a time when it was not popular, and it was very risky to do something that was associated with kind of foo-foo hair metal MTV party music, and they brought it into death metal, and they made it work by using them in a kind of restrained, very tastefully, did good atmospheres with them. They didn't run wild with Malmsteen like keyboard synth solos all over the place. They used it to accentuate and highlight the music, not to take over the music. So yeah, both those first two Nocturnus albums, excellent stuff. I know Mike Browning's vocals were a sticking point for a lot of folks, and I get that. Yeah, Mike trying to drum and sing at the same time, it didn't work out as well as one might have hoped.
Yeah, he followed the guitar riff verbatim. Yeah,
nevertheless, there's good material, and I really enjoyed Nocturnus's take on stuff. So definitely wanted to shout them out in our earache salute this evening.
I would
If
say
there
that
if there was no Nocturnus and no Morbid Angel, you wouldn't have Blood Incantation today. So
true.
Excellent
Very true.
Point. Yep.
And I really like the fact that the keyboards were subtle, but they're like horrorphonic. I mean, they had like this, it's like really like an old 70s horror film soundtrack in the background. It's kind of cool. It gave it a cool dimension. I even like Mike Browning's vocal style. I just don't like the fact that he followed the riffs it's so annoying, but yep. Anyway.
It never bothered me as much as it bothers some folks, but I do get it that it's not it is a thing. All right, Marty. Yep, and there's the classic, the key.
All right, well, I'm going to stick with the industrial stuff because Earache did it, and they had one of the forefathers or the godfathers of the whole thing, and that's Godflesh. Justin Broderick. I can't remember the other guy's name off the top of my head right now, but these are my two favorite Godflesh albums. The debut, self-titled debut, very dirgy, but very good, well-written songs. This album falls into more of a repetitive vibe, but this album is so catchy and well-written. The riffs are so good, and I really like how Broderick, he mixes up more of a shouting style with clean, straight-up singing. It's just a very cool... It's kind of like this, picture of a cell connecting to a computer chip. It's kind of, you got the drum machine, deadpan delivery in the background, but the riffs are very organic, and Justin's vocals are very organic over the top. This is very repetitious, but the payoff is good. The songs are good, especially the first song, Xenobus. Very good song. I mean, the Crush My Soul, Body Dome Light. Great album. I love this album. This might be my favorite. It's between these two. I love Street Cleaner as well. Matt, I seen you holding that up. There's some amazing songs on that, like Rats. There's like side A is better than side B, where it gets off into more like noise in the second side. It starts to kind of lose my interest a bit, but also a great album. Godflesh. You really can't talk about Earache and not mention Godflesh, and they really did pioneer a whole subgenre of metal, going forward with more electronics. Were they as innovative as industrial bands? Probably not, but they definitely tipped their hat to that side of music and worked it in with the metal core, and it's very cool. It's really good what came out of it. Is it as good as Pitch Shifter? Early Pitch Shifter, no, but there's definitely suckling from the same teat for sure.
I think they're more influential, like for bands today than they were at the time of their heyday. Like without Godflesh, you wouldn't have Author and Punisher today, which is basically a Godflesh tribute band in my brain. You wouldn't have like even a lot of stuff that like bands like Neurosis have done. Like they wouldn't have been doing what they did without Godflesh being around. So yeah, I think they definitely had their place as an influential industrial metal band, just more on the droney side of things rather than the riff heavy side of things.
Yep. And this is a good point. There's a lot of swans in this early.
Yeah,
A
absolutely.
lot of swans. Which, if you
Absolutely.
like that, some early swans is a tough sell for me because it's so minimal and so repetitious. But it's still the influence is definitely there.
One of
And,
the best shows I ever saw live was Swans. They put on an amazing concert.
I bet.
They turn it when I saw them, they have this thing where they purposefully turn the venue into a sweat lodge. So they make the people who run the venue turn off all of the AC, shut all the doors, and they make you sweat your balls off. And it's supposed to be some kind of transcendental blah 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 kind of crap going on. But it was a good experience when I saw Swans. So.
Oh, and I just want to say before moving on to you, Matt, that we're ranging between 70 and 80 some people. I just want to thank everybody for hanging out with us as always. You guys are great. We really appreciate everybody spending their time with us. And yeah, Matt, you're up.
Okay. Well, Alan cannot push us away from the industrial side of things
Oh, I'm glad y'all can cover it
with Earache. But I'm going to show a band that I'm pretty sure you guys will not know of or appreciate. Did you guys ever get into the Berserker?
Didn't like them.
I
might like them more now.
Man, these albums were crazy. These were, I don't know, industrial death metal, but with like super hyper fast drum machine beats that they always said was a real drummer, but I never believed it because it's impossible. It's impossible to drum that fast. These were great albums, and I like these Berserker albums a lot just because I like a lot of sound sample stuff, and they did that a lot on these two records. And really, after these two records, I didn't really give two flying fucks about what Berserker was doing, but I really always have enjoyed the self-titled and Dissimulate. These are fun records. Very spastic, very hyper, very hard to digest, but once you got into it, you know, it was good pumping stuff. So
I will give those another chance because I got those promos during a time where I was too black metal culto for my own whatever.
Give them another chance. I mean, both. If you have both of these, give both of them a try again.
I don't. I had them. I got rid of them as promos a long time ago. Yeah.
Well, there's this little thing called the internet that exists.
Wait. What?
Yeah, it's spelled internet, and there's this lovely platform called YouTube where you can listen to old men talk about music like it matters. And you can listen to.
Didn't Al Gore have something to do with the internet? Didn't he make it?
You know, I've heard that, but I think that's fake news. I think that's fake news. I think Donald Trump invented the internet.
Oh, yes.
Matt, wait, I'm confused. You mean the internet can be used for things other than fighting about politics and watching pornography?
Apparently, I mean, that's all I use it for. That's all I use it for.
Yeah.
But you know, whatever. That and listening to Berserker records. So there you go.
We now have 3 uses for the internet. Awesome.
3 and 3 only.
Oh, wait a minute. They're from Australia. That means Simon knows them.
Yeah, and I'm sure Simon hates them because Simon doesn't like anything that's good. So
yeah.
Oh, he's gonna give us crap for that tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. He's probably had him over for chicken a couple times last week.
Don't you mean kangaroo?
Yeah, kangaroo. Can you eat kangaroo in
Throw
Australia?
the shrimp on
the pouch is the best part.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's very tasty.
Mm-hmm.
Cheers to Simon, everybody.
Cheers, Simon. He's not here, but cheers to him anyway.
Yeah, Simon from the Explosive Action channel.
Explosive Action. Go subscribe.
Have you guys had him on Heavy Metallurgy?
Yeah.
I think you have, didn't you?
Simon joined us for a cast on Metal Around the World a while back.
Boom.
We'll get him back. We'll get him back for sure. He was awesome.
That was the one.
All right. And it is Alan's turn.
All right. So in all seriousness, yes, I'm glad, Matt, that you and Marty can cover the industrial side because it's an important part of Earache's discography and their history. It's just one I can't speak to. You know, again, friends in college. I had a girlfriend that liked, a lot of that kind of stuff. It just was never quite my cup of tea, but I'm glad you guys have that base covered for us. I'm going to stick to, maybe some more, the core death metal stuff. We've been talking for almost 2 hours, and we have not yet brought up one of the most important bands on the label. So it's time we break the seal and talk a little Morbid Angel. And I'm going to show off their second album, Blessed Are the Sick. I know most people gravitate to Altars of Madness these days, and understandably so. It's an amazing album, and it's a very unique album in their catalog. But yep. But Blessed Are the Sick was the album where me and the handful of people that were listening to this stuff with me in high school. This is the album that came out right when we were becoming aware of death metal. This came out spring of '91. And so it was this album that we first saw. We had to sort of work backwards later on and figure out, oh, they made an album before this. Who knew? So always liked this one. I thought, it was
Great
cool.
album.
I liked the cover art, that they kind of pulled, from the classical painting. It wasn't, just another, sort of meant to be, gory horror themed covers. Like, that's a little different. It's still kind of weird and creepy, but it kind of hints that there's a little more depth to the band. And yeah, the guys are just, you've got a killer lineup. Everybody's on top of their game. Excellent performances, and just really solid list of songs. And I went back, haven't played that album for quite a while because I've been gravitating to Altars of Madness in recent times. So yeah, I went back and played Blessed Are the Sick a couple of months ago, and it ended up staying in the CD player for like a week or so. It's just like, yeah, that's still just very, very cool. I know it's not a lot of people's favorite in their discography, but I think it's a very well put together album. And Morbid Angel, by a lot of metrics, they were the most successful death metal band going for a long time. And maybe they're still one of those legacy bands, even if folks aren't as enamored with their more recent output. So what do y'all think? Where do you stand on Morbid Angel?
Oh, they suck. They suck.
Morbid Angel, probably my favorite, but it's tough. Terrible. It's tough to choose. It's tough to choose. But this album sounds completely dissimilar to the rest of their catalog. And it's so together and perfect. I thought Blessed Are the Sick, the songs are great. I love the production. I learned to love it. But initially it was weird compared to this. This is so perfect. And then Blessed is just a very strange production. But that's a great album. There's no complaints on that album.
Yeah, I love every Morbid Angel record. I mean,
every
one. Yes, I do.
Every
yes, I do, and I will explain it if you let me.
Sure.
We'll give you the rope. You can hang yourself with it. Here you go.
Hey, I own Chameleon by Halloween, and I rate that.
I own Elude too, but
your credibility is already totally shot, Matt. So do whatever you want to, man.
All right. Let me explain. I mean, let me finish here. Come on. So, all right, Elude. Let's just get to the elephant. Elude. It's not a great Morbid Angel record, but that album does have a few good songs on it if you ignore the really bad ones. So there is some merit to that record, no matter how many times people want to lambaste it for too extreme and radical and Destructos versus the Earth and those stupid songs. Yes, those are terrible songs, but it does have some really good ones too. It would have been better served to be an EP and all of that bad industrial stuff being a different project, but it is still worthy of owning for a few songs. So that is what I will say about All Up in My Anus.
Marty, haven't you mentioned that there was a different mix of that album, like on Trey's Bandcamp or something?
Oh no, that's the new one.
The new,
new one.
Okay,
My
so
mistake.
here,
My mistake.
so I have a story about this infamous alternate mix of Elude. So when I saw Morbid Angel on this tour right here, when they were doing the 20-year anniversary of Covenant, I talked to Trey. He was hanging out outside of the venue, and we were talking about the album, and he blamed that entire album on Dave Vincent. He said Dave Vincent was the one that took it with his own producers and tried to make like a Jenna Torturers meets Rammstein kind of a mix on it. And it was his fault that album turned out the way it did. He said the way that he wrote it, it was supposed to be much more like a Skinny Puppy meets Morbid Angel industrial death metal record. But all of those tapes were conveniently lost. So I don't know if you can really trust Trey Azagthoth's version of that story. He is very notorious for being a bit of a space cadet, and he is also very well known as not getting along with Wavy Davy, Stick Thy Head in Gravy. So, you know, it is what it is. But apparently the original mix of Elude, Divinum, and Sanus was supposed to sound more like if Skinny Puppy and Morbid Angel had a baby together. So,
well, that their comeback album, they got Steve Tucker back. They put out Kingdom's Disdain, which ultimately is a good album. It's just produced completely all drums. The guitars are made to sound rhythmic.
Sounds like ass.
It sounds like ass. And there's apparently a better mix. Trey remixed the album and put it up on the Bandcamp page. And the few songs I heard sound a lot better. A lot. It could have been a killer album, but they kind of fucked it with the production, with the mix.
Well, those songs sound great live. I mean, I saw them live when they were touring that album, and it sounded night and day, like a completely different album. So, you know, who knows? Who knows? But speaking of Morbid Angel, since I pulled them out, I'm gonna do a mini deep dive on Morbid Angel for like the next 4 hours. Are you guys cool with that?
I'm fine with it.
I'm just going to sit here and chuckle to myself because your description now has me stuck on the idea of a side project called Morbid Puppy.
Or Skinny Angel.
I thought about that first, but Morbid Puppy is much, much funnier. So I want to stick with that one.
So this rules. I don't know if anybody really cares about Abominations.
I like it, but if people are saying that's my favorite Morbid Angel, I don't get it, man. It's not as good as what they can.
No, those people are just flexing for the sake of flexing. They can shut up.
Old school. I'm old school. I like the old stuff better.
This is the best one. Shut the hell up. This is the best one, and get over yourself. Blessed is actually one of my least favorite Morbid Angels. I have to be honest. I do like it a lot, but it's doomier. It's a lot slower. So when I want to listen to Morbid, I don't really pick this one very often. But that's just me. Remember when Dennis from Analog Archives crapped all over this album, saying it was like mall metal and they're wearing like leather pants and like fuck Morbid Angel because of this album? I don't really agree, but it was really funny when Dennis reviewed this album.
I hate to break to Dennis, but there's a lot of bands in metal that wear leather pants.
Yeah, but I love Covenant. I think Covenant's great. You know, you can't not talk about Domination too. My entry point for Morbid Angel was Domination. So great record. You guys have Entangled in Chaos?
I do not have that.
This is where I kind of, fell off, just wasn't paying attention to Morbid Angel right around the letter E. I lost track of them.
This is probably my second favorite Morbid Angel. I love Formulas. This album,
I haven't spun it in a long time.
Start to finish, man. This album is so good. So good. I love this one.
This next album really grew on me. I really like this album. This is a good album.
Gateways is fire, definitely fire. And a lot of people crap on Heretic, but then Elude came out, and then everyone was like, "Oh, Heretic's not that bad at all." Actually,
it's kind of like when Trump happened. Everybody's like, "You know that George Bush guy? He's not that bad."
He's not that bad. I think I make a joke about that in my ministry deep dive. Actually, so And then
Very
the
cool.
only other Earache, to keep it strictly Earache, was their unlicensed pressing of Juvenilia, which is the official J album, which is just Altars of Madness live, basically. That's all this is.
Never even seen that.
Yeah, it was a record store day release, and
Oh my god!
yeah, I didn't get it on record store day. It just happened to be at a shop one day, but it was released for record store day.
You
Recorded
didn't pick up a
in
brown version of the Beatles, a white album.
yeah, that comes with it, with a free sample of Tide. But this this was recorded in 1989 and released in 2015.
Right on.
So yeah, Juvenilia, that is the J album. That's why it goes from Elude to Kingdoms Disdained, because Earache and Digby went ahead and did the J album. So
okay.
that's why it jumps in the alphabet. So there you go. That's my Morbid Angel. I got a flag here. You know, I'm a fan. It's actually signed by Trey Azagthoth, but you can't see.
Do you have the cod piece from the Inside the Blessed photo shoot
I'm wearing it right now, Marty.
Signed by David Vincent.
It's on my penis right now. So.
Excellent.
So Matt, how do you decide which day to wear that one and which day to wear the Mortiz cod piece?
I flip a coin because they're both very fashionable, and
you wait till one starts getting a little swampy, and then you swap them out and let one air out.
I'm pretty gross. I don't wash them, so I mean they have my essence mixed with David Vincent's essence and Mortis's essence too. It's just one massive swamp of awesome. So.
Yes.
All right, go on to the next person, please. I'm done.
See, now I'm seeing a side project called The Smell of Vincent, and this is getting weird and creepy.
Oh, yes.
All right.
Okay, is it me? It's me. All right.
Wait a minute. No, it's not. You just did Blessed.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think
so it's me. Holy shit.
I'm not ready, so it's just like, wait. Yeah, take it away, Marty.
All right, let's go with a band that's often overlooked, which is sad because everybody talks about Left Hand Path being the best guitar tone ever. Fudge Tunnel, Hate Songs in E minor. You want to talk about one of the best guitar tones ever? It's on this album. Holy crap. These guys have a guitar tone that's about as thick as a fucking free-range bison. Absolutely thick. They do a Cream cover at the end of this, Sunshine of Your Love. And also Ted Nugent's Cat Scratch Fever, which... what a joke. But other than that, this is a great album. I enjoy. I've got, I think, all of this band's stuff in either on cassette or CD. All of it's good, and it's all revolves around a thick as hell guitar tone. These guys are great. 3-piece power trio. The main guy, Alex Newport, is Gloria, her son, and Max Calavera married her. She was also the manager for Sepultura and Soulfly. And they Alex and Max together did a project called Nail Bomb, which is also pretty cool, but I prefer Fudge Tunnel, actually. Fudge Tunnel's great.
I've never heard Fudge Tunnel because I've always heard it described as being math rock, and I don't think that's
it is so not math rock. It is not technical at all. It's just it's a little bit on the, it dips its toe in the punk water, but the guitar tone is so massive. It's just, this is a great album. Check it. There's something that they made, Al Gore made, called The Internet. You should check it out. I'll check out Berserker if you check out Fudge Tunnel.
Okay. I thought Donald Trump invented the internet, but
he might have. He invented everything.
I know it's huge.
It's huge.
I hear you can order used cod pieces on the internet now.
I hope so.
Really?
Just saying.
Oh, really?
Well, there's that one girl that was a bachelorette person or something.
Oh, I know where this is going. I don't want to hear this.
She was selling her farts in a jar to people, and actually had to go to the hospital because her diet consisted of beans and beans and beans and a bunch of other stuff. She made like $200,000 in like a 2-month period selling her farts in a jar to fucking morons.
Wow.
Anyway, how do we get on
Well, good
this?
for her, man. Good for her.
Yeah, I mean, hell, I wish I could get a picture of a hot chick and just me start farting into a jar and start my own campaign. I mean, that'd be killer.
That's a hell of a side hustle, man. Selling
Yeah,
farts. Holy crap.
All you need is Taco Bell.
So I think with going back to Fudge Tunnel, oddly with this topic,
well, Fudge Tunnel and farts, I guess it's the same thing.
Didn't one of those albums come into that Columbia Records Earache merger?
Yeah,
songs
Creep Diets. The name of the album is Creep Diets.
Creep Diets. Okay, yeah. I know there's one that I've always seen where it's like a dude's head that's like
yeah, that one is too. The one has got like a Venus flytrap with a fly in it. That's, I think, the first one that was on there. But,
okay. Yeah, those are the only ones I've seen, and I've always heard people talk about Fudge Tunnel. I've just never gotten around to listen to
it's
them.
good. This one is really good. 8 songs in E minor. Check it out.
Okay.
I heard a little bit of their stuff back in the day, but it wasn't off that album. I think it was off the other one you mentioned, Marty, and it was 1 or 2 songs. I never really followed up.
It's just catchy and heavy. It's not grunge. It's like a weird, it falls into a nebulous zone where it doesn't really, it's kind of genreless. It's
that's
really
kind of what I
strange.
remember is it just didn't, just fell between the cracks. But hey, working on your new campaign here, Marty. So, you know, hi, my name is Marty. Send me $50 and I'll walk into a jewel case for you.
Wow, this one smells like rotting roadkill possum.
All the money
well spent.
for an extra $15, you can get a picture with my used cod piece.
They call me White Castle. My
$15.
nickname is White Castle.
Really? Cheers, everybody.
Why is this envelope stained with White Claw?
I'm drinking another Millhouse. This beer is delicious, by the way. So,
oh, cool. Don't know that one.
What's the link for Fart Jar asking for a friend? She had to quit because she had health problems because she was eating a high fiber diet to continue farting.
Yeah, no, it tore up her stomach pretty good. I saw the story and wept for humanity, and now we're back on it.
Yep. Awesome. Anyway, it is Matt's turn, I believe.
Me again? All right.
I gotta pee.
Let's go with Akrakoki. You guys ever get into Akrakoki?
Nope, did not.
So this was a band out of England that pretty much is like a love letter to every possible subgenre of underground metal. You know, every album they do, it's death metal, it's black metal, it's grindcore, it's everything thrown into a blender and mixed together. And this one isn't actually my favorite Akrakoki album. They were signed to Peaceville Records, and then Earache poached them, and then they released a few albums on Earache, and then they broke up, but then they went back to Peaceville. And this is probably the best band I can think of that was part of that last hurrah of Earache being a notable metal label. Akrakoki was one of the bands that they had signed and picked up, and not too long after this is when things started going south. I mean, this was 2003, and they have an album or two after this one, I think, on Earache, and then Earache became what we were talking about at the beginning of the stream. But this is a great band, man. I mean, if you like bands that mix it all together, you don't get any better than Akrakoki. And I could be pronouncing that band name wrong. I've heard it pronounced Akrakoki, I don't know. I know it's the name of some kind of Sumerian demon, but great album. And they were always really into naked ladies. So this album has some booty, and then on the back you got some titty, and then they've got some other albums that have some TNA all over it too. But great band.
That helps sell their albums. Go to Mendes. Yeah, that's the one.
Go to Mendes is my favorite one, but that one was released by Peaceville, so I couldn't show that one. But
you open the CD booklet, and instead of the ink smell, you get the the fart wafting out from in between the pages.
Yeah,
It's sealed in there
smell of
the whole
taint.
time, sitting on the shelf.
You get some funky taint when you open up an Earache album. But Marty, did you ever get into these guys?
I had I had Go to Mendes, and I believe I had that one, but I never kept them. They were okay. They just I just figured I'd never listen to them again.
Yeah, I think their output from what they did in the early days and the first couple they did on Earache, they're just kind of a love letter to all things underground metal. And they just threw everything in a blender, mixed it up, and you get a little bit of everything from underground metal with an Earache record. So,
Their aesthetic was suits and ties and the sophisticated Satanist type of
It was. And the funny thing about that is, yeah, they always wore suits and tried to look all Dapper Dan and everything.
I'm drinking wine.
Satan. But, after they broke up and they got back together, I saw them live at MDF in 2017, 2018, 2019. I don't know, one of those years. And they were just wearing regular street clothes. Like, they weren't wearing their suits. And like, me and my friends, we were like, what the hell, man? Like, you're Earache. You're supposed to be wearing all dapper shit. And they were like, yeah, no, we're just here wearing our black t-shirts and blue jeans. And it wasn't the same, man. We were looking forward to the dapper, and it wasn't there. So
Dapper Dan.
But great band. Earache, however you want to pronounce it. Great band. I love them.
Okay, Alan.
All right. Well, something we mentioned towards the start of the show was that, Earache's catalog really fell off, as you got into the 2000s. And you kind of really have to pick through a lot of stuff to find, any bands. Marty, I think, you asked, like, what bands had they really signed in the past 10 or 20 years that folks cared about much in metal circles? Found a couple, and I think it's time to show one of them. This band I had heard some rumblings about, and then Earache picked them up and put out what ended up being their last album. But the career got kind of cut short because the main man in the band, unfortunately, was killed in an accident. I may butcher the pronunciation of this. I think it's Woods of Ypres.
Ypres.
Ypres, isn't it?
Ypres? Okay.
Ypres,
Woods of Ypres. I think the S is silent, but I'm not sure. Anyway, I think it's their fourth album, but it's numbered 5. Gray Skies and Electric Light came out in 2012. Not a year where you're finding a whole lot of big metal releases on Earache. But and calling this as a metal release, it's metal, but it's definitely different. I'm not familiar with the back. The band had gotten a lot of accolades to this point, but I got the sense this album was kind of different from what they had done before. Maybe not. It's got, a little bit more of almost, a heavy goth rock sound, but, definitely with the metal backbone built into it. And
I always looked at them as like Typo Negative without girlfriend metal aspect of it. Like, they were like, if Typo Negative wasn't trying to score with goth chicks, they would have been Woods of Ypres. Yips, however you pronounce it. I don't know, but
yeah, it's almost like a little bit more like I agree, Matt, maybe like a reined in version of later Sisters of Mercy Vision thing. They've got the rock thing going on, but not going for a flamboyant style here like they were on Vision. But it's not a bad album. I love the opening track. Lightning Snow is really catchy. It was a great lead-off track for the album. It showed a lot of promise. And again, the band had picked up a lot of momentum, heading into this album. And then, unfortunately, David Gold died in the accident. And
he died in a car crash, I think. Yeah.
Yep, I believe it was. It was a car accident. And so unfortunately, their career was cut short, and would be. I know it's one of those what if scenarios. What if that accident doesn't happen? Does the band continue to ascend? If so, do they stay on Earache and give Earache, a new band gaining in popularity with a heavy metal crowd? We'll never know. But
I think they would have really gone on to bigger and better things, because if you look at the trajectory of that band, like where they ended, where that dude died, was not where they started. I mean, they
no.
were definitely changing their sound with every album, and they were getting more palatable with every album and more into the depressive rock kind of sound, kind of like Catatonia. I think they were following the same trajectory that Catatonia was on. But I mean, that their last two albums are just fantastic. Those are great records, and I don't own them. That's why I don't have anything to show. But that's a good pick, because they are an often forgotten great latter era, end of the good era of Earache Records. They're like the best band to show, because they were really on a great trajectory, a great path to being a really big, excellent band. And yeah, it was unfortunately short. So that's a good pick, man. That was a good pick.
Yeah, I agree, Matt. I think they had the potential to break through to a much bigger, wider audience, like
they were so
Catatonia or
they were so close.
Someone.
I think if that dude hadn't died, I think they would have been just as big today as Opeth is, because they were not quite proggy, but they were going in that lighter direction, but still like crushingly heavy. But I think they had a better sound to them than Catatonia had, and I think they would have fit very well in that weird spot that Opeth is in right now, where like they're not death metal, they're not suicidal metal, they're not really proggy, like they're kind of in a weird spot, and I think Woods of Ypres would have been right around that spot with them. But we'll never know. We will never know.
Sadly, we won't.
No.
All right, then, Marty.
Didn't mean to steal your thunder there, Alan, but
no.
I'm a big fan of that band, and I wish I had something to show. I just don't own any of their records. So
yeah, I may have the Green album also, but I've only got digital on that one too. I don't know. I may not have that one. I remember hearing it several times, so it may be on the hard drive here.
Okay. For me, I got to show these two albums together because they're spiritual successors to each other. And first up is World Downfall by Terrorizer.
Oh, you bastard.
This album, this is the perfect grindcore album. I'm not even gonna entertain any other people saying that it's not, because it's not. This is the ultimate grindcore album. It's great production. It inspired other bands like this band, Brutal Truth. Extreme conditions demand extreme responses. Sorry, I'm getting a little drunk, so my talking isn't all that awesome, but these are both great.
Sing it, sister. This album rules.
They are both great grindcore albums, well produced, death metal heavy, but they're both insanely catchy. This obviously has got Jesse Pintado, Dave Vincent on bass, and Oscar, I can't remember his last name, Reyes. I want to say it's Reyes. And Pete Sandoval. So you got Morbid Angel, you got Napalm Death. This band exists. There's two forms of this band now. There's Oscar has a version of Terrorizer, and Pete has a version of Terrorizer. And the one that Pete has got Lee Harrison from Monstrosity on guitar, and Sam, I don't remember his last name. Yeah, I think he's also in Monstrosity, to be honest with you. But they sound great. The newest Terrorizer is actually quite good. It has a lot of feeling of this here, and you see them live. They do a really great job playing this old stuff. Perfect grindcore album.
Yep.
Amazing grindcore album. Dan Lilker's band, obviously. Kevin Sharp. I can't remember who the guitar player. I don't think it was Rich Hoke on this one. Oh, and I'm too drunk to read anything right now. So yeah, Nuclear Assault. The tides had shifted away from thrash. Dan was taken aback by the speed and intensity of grindcore. Started his own thing, Brutal Truth. The first two Brutal Truth albums are great. I like them both equally. As they went, they got a lot more weird, eclectic, experimental, which is, I enjoy that shit too. Very cool. But this is the stuff that really it's grabs you by the nether regions for sure and squeezes. This is just excellent grindcore. And Earache, they always had an ear for that stuff, man, and they tend to land the good ones, and those were two of the good ones.
Yeah, agreed 100%. That Terrorizer album.
Mhm.
I mean, I'll listen to that any day over Brutal Truth. And Brutal Truth is great too, but that Terrorizer album's untouchable. Storm of Stress. Such a great song.
Corporation pull in. So
my God. So good. So good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, grind is not my wheelhouse, but the Terrorizer one is pretty darn cool.
Simon, we've already talked about you tonight.
Do we get to make fun of Simon now? Now that
we talked about your friends, the Berserker, and how you were probably hanging out with them the other day. We know you're friends with them because you know everybody in Australia. So just say, hey man, what's up? Everybody go check out Explosive Actions channel. God damn it, great channel, awesome. If you like movies and awesome metal stuff, definitely check them out.
Simon's collection just emasculates all of us. It's insane.
It's ridiculous.
His cod piece is much larger than ours.
It is, and
it's
probably
all
smells
of my
fresh.
cod pieces times a billion. So
and it probably smells fresh.
Yeah, unlike
unencumbered by body stank. Yeah,
mine smells like where the slime lives. So.
There you go. Good old Berserker. Mental. Of course he knows them. He had them over. They had koala. They roasted some koala out on the bobby.
Hey man, they're an endangered species. That's not cool.
Oh, okay. Anyway, it's Matt's turn.
Oh boy. So all right, I'm gonna throw this out for Pat, Mr. Ground Zero Salem, because I know he's the only one that appreciates this album with me. Oh crikey, it's Lawnmower Death. Yeah, we have to go there. Such a silly, fun, ridiculous album. I mean, it has a metal duck on it. Look, it has the metal duck.
Where's the metal duck?
Superman is on here. Look, there's Superman. How'd they get away with that? There's the Millennium Falcon. Millennium Falcon right there. Look at that. This album rules. It's such a fun, stupid album made by a bunch of drunk brummies that are just having fun, man. That's just a fun party record. Such a dumb album, but it's so good. It's so good. It's such a fun record. And that's really all I can say about Lawnmower Death. They're just a fun, stupid, drunk band that you listen to when you are as drunk as this thing right here is. So.
All right.
Have you guys wait, don't move on. You guys have never listened to Lawnmower Death?
I have not heard a single minute of Lawnmower Death.
I've heard songs here and there. I've never owned any, but I've heard them.
It's not silly stuff is never really in my wheelhouse. So once in a while I'm in the mood for it, but not very often.
I mean, you don't want to listen to this, right? Look at it.
I don't. I look at that. I'm like, yeah, there's probably not a whole lot for me on this album.
There's a lot on this album for you.
You know what? I have heard Satan's Trampoline. I have heard that song on a comp. It might have been the Grind Crusher tape. I bet you it was. Old Lady Drivers is on there. I think Lawnmower Death. Satan's Trampoline. I've heard it on this song. And that was enough for me to say, yeah, I'm good. Pretty good. All right, Alan.
All right. Let's do this. One other in the recent pool of Earache releases, which, as we've mentioned, it's pretty few and far between these days for Earache to put out something that has any impact in the heavy metal community. Woods of Ypres was, a good shot, and that band met an unfortunate end. And the story kind of repeated itself with this next band, because they put out a couple of very good albums, got some attention, built some momentum. Earache picked them up, put out their next album, and it ended up being their last one, because some very, very scummy things happened in the Vector camp. terrible way the band fell apart. I'm going to assume everybody knows the story, but Terminal Redux, excellent album.
Yeah.
This is one of those. If people don't like the band and want to write them off being scumbags, I absolutely get it. That was pretty horrific stuff that went on with that dude. At the same time, they left behind 3 very, very good albums. They get a lot of comparisons to Voivod, but I thought that was maybe a little overblown. Yes, they're techy. Yes, I think it's really just the logo. I think you're exactly right, Matt. I think people look at the logo, think Voivod,
and they toured together. I saw Voivod and Vector together on tour. They toured together when I think it was when Outer Isolation was the new album.
I love Outer Isolation is a perfect fucking record. Oh my God.
They're all, even the first one.
They're great records, but fuck this band. Fuck this band super hard.
They're back together apparently.
But they're great records.
Some of them, the guy with the woman beating issues, and I think one other member has rejoined him. They've done a single or 2 over the past year or so. Don't know if it's going to go anywhere or not. I haven't heard the new tunes, so I'm not going to comment on them. Don't know, but yeah. Excellent band. They do the technical thrash thing very well. What I really liked about them was that while they could sound kind of techy and they could have that weirdness and that quirkiness, that kind of vibe that again will draw some Voivod comparisons. They very much did stay in more of a thrash wheelhouse. They didn't have the music really wander completely off track. They always kept it in the thrash lane, and they also didn't let it get too weird. They had those touches, but they weren't really going in a direction where it's going to be like, oh, let's simplify it, strip it down, and we'll just see how many distorted notes we can play on bent strings and all that. It was always pretty focused, and I appreciated that in the way they wrote the songs and put the albums together. It was a really good chance for Earache to plant a flag on a new band that everything was lining up for them. They could be a big thing, and then they couldn't.
I mean, that video that came out about them is such a hard watch. I mean, where he's just beating the shit out of his girlfriend with a pillow, and then the camera kind of fades off to the side, and you hear a lot of other shit going on, and it's like, how can you support that band? I don't care how great those albums are. I mean, there's a lot of great albums out there. I cannot respect anybody that would still support Vector as a band, and I own the records. You just saw it. I own all 3 of those records. They're great albums, but I'm not selling them. I'm not giving them to anybody else that's like, oh, dude, you got to separate the art from the artist, man. Shut the hell up. He beat the hell out of that girl on camera, and it is out there for the world to see. Fuck Vector. Fuck Vector and everything about them. So I keep those records because it's the same reason why I keep my Inquisition albums and other troublesome albums. I don't want those albums to be in anybody else's hands. I don't want anybody to get a good deal and think that they got a good deal on shitty crap. To hell with all those bands. They will sit on my shelf and collect dust, and then when I die, they will be broken. It's in my will. You break these specific records and throw them in the fucking trash.
Yep.
So anyway,
but yeah, just another. It does in some ways. It seems like Earache made some decent acquisitions, in the 2010s in the metal world, and
that's what sucks. That's what sucks about Vector so much too, man. Like they were such a great band, and they really could have put Earache back on the map. They could have put them.
Might have
back on the map as being a good metal label. Like, look, we have this great band, and if this band takes off, which they were getting huge, they were getting popular. You know, Earache could have started, signing more bands that weren't Southern butt rock, but then it turned out, oh, you're just as bad as, all these other crappy dudes out there. So
I mean, you're right, man. I mean, both them and Woods of Ypres. I mean, those are the kinds of bands that would have drawn other bands to that label.
Sure.
Yeah.
Those were bands like, oh, what Vector or Woods, like these albums are amazing. What label are they dealing with?
And that's just proof that karma is a bitch, isn't it? I mean, Woods of Ypres crashed and burned because the dude died. That's the end of that. Vector, dude's a wife beater, girlfriend beater, whatever. That's the end of that. So, okay, enjoy your Blackberry Smoke records and your Rival Sons and whatever. The party's over, Digby. Sorry. So that's just that's just karma biting Digby in the butt right there.
Yeah. And it just shows that, people in life sometimes are their own worst enemy. Because Vector were fucking awesome. And I love that Outer Isolation album. And they always reminded me of like super techie Destruction because of his vocals. He's got that schmear high end and, the voivodisms here and there and the strange chordings and stuff. But it's just shame. He completely wrecked his career over being a fucking idiot. But
yeah.
Anyway,
like it's just one of those bands where, like, I know they're like, the fan base of heavy metal is so split with separating art from artist and whether or not you can do it or you can't. And for some things I can do it, but for other things I can't. And for a guy like that to be like, I can't ignore that level of brutality just for the sake of, yeah, but your records are good. Get the hell out of here, man. Come on. Like, if anyone, I'm not reading the comments, but if anyone is defending Vector, fuck off.
No one is.
No, folks.
There's usually somebody that's like, yeah, but the riffs, man. No, if you're a yeah, but the riffs guy, shut the fuck up and get out of here. Unsub me right now, please. Anyway, what do you guys want to talk about next?
Aren't you glad you picked that one out? Of course, I had it too. I knew it's, and I mean, it's fair. The music's very good. The behavior was unexcusable. So that's where it was at. But if we're talking Earache, I mean, it was one reason I wanted to show it. It was their most recent, really good attempt at getting back into the metal arena. There haven't been many, so sad they just couldn't land it. But Marty, let's move on to somebody else. What you got next?
I'm going to show a couple classics because we kind of skated around them here.
Oh yeah, we still got a few big ones to talk about.
Yeah, you and I ran through this band's catalog on a Wednesday night on a Wednesday night quick blast, and it's Carcass. Ooh. This week I've decided that Symphonies of Sickness is my favorite, and it's usually either this one or Necroticism. But Symphonies this week is the one, and what can you say? A band that boiled out of a vat of glistening giblets that was very much grindcore, but with medical terminology, medical dictionary type shit, vocals or lyrics, and a beautiful thing happened between Recaputrefaction and Symphonies of Sickness. They started to write really amazing songs. And this album is completely lethal, completely perfect. It spawned the gore grind movement. It spawned a lot of stuff. And that album there, Necroticism, is another perfect album. Perfect slab. Well recorded, great songwriting, completely unique sound, completely unique vocals. Love Carcass. I'm sure be talking about this band a million more times between now and by the time either myself or Alan drop dead. They're just an iconic band. And great stuff.
Yep. Matt, where do you stand on the Carcass catalog? What are your favorites?
Well, when it comes to Carcass, I pretty much like all of them except for the modern albums that came out. And it's not that I don't like them. It's just that so much time has passed between their heyday and today. It's like, I don't know. I kind of feel like there's just a lot of other stuff that I can be listening to. You know, Surgical Steel was okay. I still have not listened to Torn Arteries, but I love you ripping that album to shreds just based on the artwork alone. That just fills me with so much happiness and joy. I love
I do
it.
not like the packaging on that CD. I do not.
Like I know
Really?
I know I need to hear Torn Arteries. I just haven't gotten around
It's a good
to
album.
it.
It's a good album.
I've heard it
Yeah.
is. I'll get to it eventually, but I don't know, man.
Yeah, musically it's cool.
When it comes to Carcass, I mean, this is such a great, gross, disgusting album, but can you listen to this album every day? No, I don't think you can. I mean, Reek of Putrefaction is great for what it is, but it's not an everyday listening kind of record. Whereas, you know, Symphonies of Sickness, great album. This is one of my favorites, and I agree with Marty. I mean, depending on the mood of the day, it's either this one is my favorite or Necroticism is my favorite, you know.
Yep.
They're both great albums. More days than not, I go to this one, you know, to be honest. This is the one I always go to, but they're both great albums. And really, when it came to Heartwork and Swan Song and Surgical Steel, and I'm going to assume Torn Arteries, you know, they're a different band at this point. I mean, I think there's a really fine line in the sand between everything they did up to Necroticism and then everything they did from Heartwork on. I mean, you've got
they're a different band. They're different people. They're old guys.
I mean,
they've been doing this their entire. This is their career.
Yeah, and better, like I don't want 60-year-old men playing the same kind of music that they wrote when they were 15. I mean, I don't want that, you know. So, you know, hats off to Carcass for changing and for becoming more technical and more melodic and better songwriters. And I think Carcass is great because you get the best of both worlds. You get the really raw, nasty, uncompromising, gross stuff, and then you also get the really happy, melodic, excellent sounding stuff too, and it's all the same band. So I mean, you can't go wrong with Carcass. I just, you know, need to hear that new album just to cross the T's and dot the I's. I just haven't gotten there yet. But yeah, Carcass, great band. I love all of their stuff that I've heard. I just haven't heard the new one yet. So
it's good. It's like a mix of everything they've done. There's a bit of Swan Song on it, but it's tempered with actually really good songwriting.
So there's the thing with Swan. So are we? I know you guys already talked about Swan Song on that Carcass episode you did. I get bored with that record after about 4 or 5 songs. Like I mean, those first 4 or 5 songs are good, and
there's a couple good songs on it, but not many.
But after like getting close to the halfway mark, I get really bored with Swan Song. So
yeah. I agree with you, Matt. I think it starts off pretty strong. The first 4 tracks or so I like. It fades down the stretch as you near the end. There's still a couple of good songs towards the end, but the second half isn't nearly as good as the first 4. I think it's the first 4 tracks, maybe the first 5 that are kind of start. It starts off really strong, but just doesn't. It's not consistent all the way through.
So what do you think about the artwork of Torn Arteries, Alan?
No, that's not fair. I like the artwork. I just don't like the packaging of the CD. There is a difference there.
The continuation of the artwork is a bit like beating us over the head, you know?
Yeah.
I see what you're saying with it, for sure.
Oh, for sure. I mean, when you showed every page, I was like, oh, okay, like I like how it's rotting from page to page, but like, did it really need to be 15 pages long? I don't think so. It's kind of a waste of money and paper and ink at that point.
The other 15 pages, I mean, opposite each image, you just have gibberish. If there's other stuff there in the booklet to read or look at or check out, that's one thing. But it's just, here's the vegetable on day 1. Here's a bunch of gibberish. Turn the page. Here's the vegetables on day 2. Here's another page of just
they mixing up the lyrics was so dumb.
So here's a question. So you guys both have the new album, right? Like you both have it. So I'm a little confused with how the lyrics work on those pages. So are the lyrics jumbled up so it's just random words, or is
Yeah.
it like it's
Yep.
in that heart shape and you just kind of have to jump around and read it? Is it
If
literally
there's a
just all
code to it,
jumbled
I have not.
words?
If there's a code or a pattern to it, I have not found it yet. And I've like searched subreddits and everything, assuming that yes, there was some way that if you read every other word, maybe it's that. I think it's completely random.
So it is
It's
all just
dumb.
jumbled random words that
It
don't
makes
even
no
match
sense.
the
It makes
actual
no
lyrics.
sense. Yeah.
Okay, so
That-
the lyrics in the book don't match the lyrics that he's singing, is what you're telling me.
Correct.
That's what
Yeah.
we're telling you.
Well, that's stupid.
It is
And
stupid.
that is why my blood pressure goes up looking at that booklet, because yes, it just makes no sense at all. If somebody in the chat knows, hey, maybe somebody has found some kind of little Rosetta Stone that is like, okay, yes, you've got to read, every fifth word and then every fourth word. And then
Dude,
every
if I have
third
to
word.
work that fucking hard to read the lyrics, it's not worth reading. It's
Yeah,
just
no
not
thank
fucking
you.
worth it.
No thank
I
you.
agree, but
Who
it would
has
be
that
maybe
kind
the
of time? Come on.
oh yeah, no, it'd be a horrible. It'd still be horrible, but at least there'd be some rhyme or reason to it at that point. But yeah, no, it's that really. That's my problem with the packaging. The actual piece of artwork, making the heart out of the vegetables, is kind of cool. I was actually showing that to my little boy the other day. He had to do a thing for art where it's like find objects around the house to make something out of. And he was kind of having trouble getting the idea. He's like, well, can't I just like pick up a toy robot and that's a robot? I'm like, no, that's not what they want you to do. He's like, I could see the wheels turning, but it hadn't clicked. I'm like, hey, I know what to show you. He's like, here, look at the cover of this album. You see what does it look like? A heart. Well, what's it made out of? He's like, oh, it's like vegetables stuck together. I'm like, yeah, so this is what you need to do. It's like find some vegetables around the house and make a heart, but you've got to find other things and build something else. So then it clicked, and she went off and did his art homework. So I got some mileage out of that booklet after all.
I thought the main image was clever. I thought it was.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
that's
is.
one thing. Carcass has always been clever. The way Walker always wrote the lyrics to say one thing and mean another. He's a clever fucking guy. I mean, they're smart. But yeah, I mean, if I want to read your lyrics, which the older I get, the less I fucking care. I mean, when I was a kid, I would dissect those fucking books and read the lyrics, and that meant so much more to me. Now I don't care. I'm just, it just, I don't know.
Well, Napalm Tomahawk in the comments has a great point. It's got us talking about it.
Exactly,
So it worked. So it worked.
Yep. Totally.
Yeah.
All right. Who did what there? That was
You
Alan.
did Carcass, so
I
it's
did Carcass. Yep. It's Matt's turn.
Matt is up to bat.
All right, so we've talked about the grindcore, the industrial, the death metal. Let's go to the other weird little pocket that Earache was trying to have a foothold in. No one's talked about Sleep yet.
Yeah, good call.
What'd you guys think of this record? When it comes to Sleep, I have a love-hate relationship with this band because really I only like this album, and even this album is kind of just okay, when it comes to that stoner rock stuff. I think everything they've done past this album is just really boring, but this album and this band led the way to High on Fire, and High on Fire, depending on your opinion on things, is a great band.
I prefer them to Sleep, actually.
Sleep's Holy Mountain, this is a really great record. I mean,
that album's got one good song.
Dragonaut, the first song,
yeah.
right? Yeah. And it's because you know it from the Gummo soundtrack, right? Well, when I used to smoke a lot of weed, which I don't do anymore, but when I was a young chap, I dabbled in the Devil's Lettuce quite a bit, and I used to listen to this record a lot. So I have a soft spot for Sleep's Holy Mountain. It's when it comes to that stoner metal, stoner doom, stoner rock stuff, it's all has the same fucking backbone to it. All that stuff does, and Sleep, their backbone is just as great as any other band in that genre. So, I understand why a lot of people rate the hell out of this band and this album, because it is really good. I think it does stand above a lot of stuff in that genre. But at the end of the day, a lot of that stuff sounds kind of the same. But if you're going to listen to some of that stuff, you got to go with a little Sleep, Holy Mountain. I think it's a good record.
Yeah, I got nothing against it, but I kind of agree with you. Most of anything else by the band has never really done a whole lot for me.
Yeah, I mean their second album, which I don't think was released by Earache, but Dope Smoker. It's like
that is boring as fuck.
It is so boring. It's like that's not how you do a one song album. You don't repeat the same riff for 13 fucking hours. That's not how it's done, people. But that's how Sleep did it. And High on Fire is a great band too, but they're not Earache, so save that for another discussion. But Sleep's Holy Mountain, I think it was a great record. Dragonaut, you cannot deny the greatness of that one song.
Yeah, I think Rick's comments from the Dreadful Minutes summed it up pretty well for most of their catalog.
Everybody, we've got Brian Arkham in the chat, who is Bongzilla's street team apparently. he loves himself some Bongzilla, and I gotta say, Sleep never did anything much for me. I like a few songs here and there. I listened to their latest album with the astronaut on the cover. That was actually pretty decent. There's some good stuff on that, but Sleep's Holy Mountain, I like the first song, Dragonaut, and after that, the album just gets really fucking boring. And
well, you're not smoking enough weed, Marty. You gotta.
The last big show I went to, we went down to Philly for the first ever Decibel Metal and Hardcore Fest. No, Beer and Metal Fest, because Panopticon and Falls Veraros were playing it. So we set up a table. I went in there when Sleep was playing. I looked up at the giant video screen, and it was a field of marijuana plants like swaying in the breeze. And the whole room smelled like pot. I just sat there and laughed. I'm like, this is perfect. Absolutely perfect. A bunch of people stoned out of their minds watching weed plants blow in the breeze, pretty much sized up exactly what Sleep is and what they do.
That story you just told just kind of kills Sleep for me. That sounds like a big giant waste of my time. So
it was a video. It was kind of funny. It was like someone was standing in a hemp plantation, and the wind was blowing and it was kind of going to the beat, which was kind of cool. I don't know, just like it made me chuckle. And people love that band, and I don't get it.
They do, but there's a lot of pot smokers out there, and I think you have to be a chronic weed smoker to appreciate that stuff.
You can listen to Black Sabbath, which is way more interesting than fucking
absolutely. And I was the biggest pothead on this planet back in the day, but I haven't touched it in years, so it doesn't resonate as much with me anymore. But at the time, I loved it, and I think Sleep has their place in the Earache Records discussion because they were Earache's stoner rock band.
I really, really, really love the first High on Fire album, The Art of Self-Defense. That album fucking rules. There's a pulse and flow to those riffs. It's just crushing. It took
Art of Self-Defense is great, and so is the second one.
Listen Like Thieves.
Yeah, both those records are great.
But the first album for me, that's the ultimate High on Fire album. That thing took what Sleep did and just gave it life. And I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's important for that style of music, at least from my perspective. It does have to have some life to it, or it gets very boring very fast.
It does.
It's the kind of thing maybe I can listen to once in a while, but I'll lose interest real fast if it doesn't have something going on in it.
And like a lot of people say the same thing about Funeral Doom that they say about stoner rock and stoner metal, that it goes on too long, it's too repetitive, there's not enough going on to keep your attention. But having lived on both sides of that fence, I see a lot more merit to Funeral Doom than I do to Stoner Doom, just because I think there's much more emotion with the Funeral Doom stuff, whereas the Stoner Doom stuff, it's more about trying to transcend you to something else with a repetitive nature. But when you're not high out of your mind, it's just boring. It doesn't make sense. Whereas with the Funeral Doom, it's repetitive, it's slow, but it's much more emotional. So
Can be. Yep.
yeah.
Just got to run out.
Another weird tangent that I'm going off on. You guys need to stop me from going
You know
on
what?
these
Someone else also mentioned Caius, and I the only Caius album I own is Welcome to Sky Valley. That album is a perfect riff album. Every
Great
riff
album.
on that album is perfect.
Caius
Absolutely
is great.
Yep.
Caius is a great band.
Yeah,
And I was
Caius is a good.
I was a huge fan of Queens of the Stone Age too. That was one of my favorite bands.
Yeah,
when
the
they
red
first-
one with Dave Grohl on drums is a killer
So,
fucking record.
Songs for the Deaf. That album.
Songs for the Deaf. Yeah.
That album dumps hard, man. But
Yeah, Caius is a good example of doing something in that wheelhouse, but keeping it very interesting.
Yeah, they keep the songs moving. There's life to those songs.
Yeah,
Those riffs are so good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Blues for the Red Sun is a really good album. I kind of go back and forth on that and Sky Valley as to which one I like best. Both of them
Sky
are really
Valley.
good.
Oh man, so good.
but
Sky Valley's good.
it's
Red Sun
weird.
has
It's
some
weird how
crushing
those
records.
genres like relate to each other in a way, just because they're both very heavy and very droning, but they have
Mhm.
completely different emotional feelings to them. You know,
Mhm.
Stoner Doom and Funeral Doom exist in a weird yin yang in a way in my brain.
One makes you sad and the other makes you want Cheetos.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
You know what? I want to give a quick shout out. We've got a lot of people here in the chat tonight that are YouTubers. We got Pat from Ground Zero Salem. Go check out Ground Zero Salem.
Definitely.
We've got Thralls of Metal, Nick from Thralls of Metal here.
Oh, hey, Nick.
We've got the guy from Drunken Metalhead Musings here. We got Brian Arkham from the Brian Arkham channel. Rick from the Dreadful Minutes. And if I missed some of you, I'm sorry, but a lot of cool YouTube channels here tonight, folks. Please, when you're done watching this or whenever, go check out these other guys, man. There's some really great shit on the internet to watch for sure. Because
we're kind of just assuming that Thralls of Metal is Nick, right?
yeah, it's Nick.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like.
Yeah. But anyway,
That's
you're up,
fair,
Alan.
man. I guess it could be one of his partners in crime over there at Thralls of Metal.
Yeah, it could be, but we know it's Nick. Yeah, we know it's Nick. And Scott Tanik's Metal Dungeon, he's a YouTuber as well.
I am
So
not
he's-
familiar. I will check it out. Scott Tanik's Metal Dungeon.
Yep. He's a one of my regular viewers, so I got to shout out Scott. He's a good dude.
Cheers,
Good
man.
deal. All right, am I up? I guess I am up. Okay, we still have a couple of heavyweights that we have not talked about. So let's wait no longer. Let's throw some bolts. I pulled War Master.
You're wrong.
Yes,
There's
we
the
can
best
both
one
be
right here.
wrong. Now, that one's probably is a better album. This one I knew you would pull that one. So
It's
I
a
wanted
great
to pull-
album. It's a great album.
This
I
one
pulled
was
War
a-
Master too. Don't worry about it. That's what I pulled as well.
Yeah. War Masters was my introduction to Bolt Thrower on a road trip to Pittsburgh for a paleontology conference in November. Is the day after Halloween. It was November 1st, 1995. And yep, the dude I was riding with, we basically played Bolt Thrower and Misfits cassettes the entire way from Toledo to Pittsburgh. And it was a hell of a trip. But this one, not just because it's my first, but it has my favorite Bolt Thrower track in it with Cenotaph. That song just crushes everything. If they had never recorded another note, the name Bolt Thrower would be remembered for that one song. Great band, kind of, came out of, the same miasma that, those other UK bands were with Carcass and Napalm and such. But both were very quickly, went, in their own direction with it and became just very consistent, crushingly heavy in their own unique, path, and made a whole bunch of really great albums. Bolt Thrower.
Yep.
So yes, Marty, we know which one you would pick as your favorite. I think everyone's got a pretty good handle on that. But yes, what would you like to say about For Victory for folks?
It is, like Sky Valley, a perfect riff album. There is not a bad throwaway, under-considered riff on this album. Every song is perfectly created, crafted, presented, delivered. And the ending with the fucking howitzer blasts at the end is just like the fucking period on a very amazing, poignant paragraph. Amazing album. Great. This is a band. All the albums leading up to this are great. They're doing this. They're on their way up.
Mhm.
And this is like, again, the chef's kiss on a fucking perfect. I mean, afterwards, there's some albums people might like a little more than other. They had the dude from Benediction. I can't remember his name right now. But man, this album is so perfect. I mean, it's such an unassuming cover too. Such an unassuming, kind of bland cover. But God, it hits Remembrance. The whole album. I can't pick a song I like better than the other on here. Amazing album. I've talked about it a million times, and if you've never heard either War Master or For Victory, you really need to check them out. They're both great, absolutely great.
Yep. Matt, where do you stand with Bolt Thrower? What bolts are your favorites to throw?
You know, I love all the Bolt Thrower albums, but they are a band that my collection is sorely missing a lot of their records. They were a band that I had a few albums back in college, but I had to sell them back in college. I've talked about that a few times on my channel where I practically had to sell my entire record collection in order to survive. And Bolt Thrower albums were one of the many sacrifices. So today I only own War Master, Fourth Crusade,
Great albums.
and the Peel Sessions. These are the
Very
only
cool.
three that I still have. And I've been on the hunt for the rest of them. And, you know, Bolt Thrower is just one of those classic legendary bands. I'm never worried about their stuff being out of print. Like I can get them when I get them. So they've never really been on my list of I have to hunt it down and get it. But when it comes to my favorite albums, I really love the first three. I mean, the first album, In Battle There Is No Law, Realm of Chaos, and War Master, those are my three favorites. And the Fourth Crusade is great. I would say that's probably their doomiest album, if you have to categorize it that way. For Victory, like Marty said, is fantastic. But, you know, Bolt Thrower is such a consistent band. It's kind of hard to pick a favorite because it's not that they all sound the same. It's just that they're just such a consistent band that, you know, you really could just throw a dart at their discography and you're fine. You know, you're just totally fine with whatever you pick from the Bolt Thrower discography. You're good. Yeah, so it's really hard for me to pick a favorite, even though I just said the first three are my favorites. So, you know, that didn't include For Victory, and that didn't include, you know, some of their other stuff. I mean, they're all great. So, you know, but like Pat's saying, I mean, the Peel Sessions are great. It's so raw. I mean, you want to hear really raw Bolt Thrower? Listen to those fucking Peel Sessions, man. They're great. Great band. I need to get the rest of their records. I just there's so much music out there, man. I can't get everything. So
very true.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, Bolt Thrower, I'm surprised it took us this long to get to Bolt Thrower because they are such a quintessential death metal band and earache band. I mean, we're saving the best for last. I mean, there's a couple more bands we haven't touched upon. I'm sure one of us has a couple other things that need to be discussed here, but
I've got two
really
more.
couldn't we just end it at Bolt Thrower and that's it? I mean,
we could, but there's a couple more fun things.
Yeah, there's a couple more, so we're gonna get there. But yeah, Bolt Thrower, fantastic band. I mean, if you don't like Bolt Thrower, I'm not gonna be that guy that sits here and says, if you don't like this band, you don't like death metal. Like, I hate it when people do that. But I mean, Bolt Thrower is a band that, you know, you have to check out and listen to. Great band.
Very active chat tonight, folks. Thanks for hanging with us. Very cool. I guess I'm up next.
I can't even keep up with the chat tonight. Like, usually you can keep up with these comments, but people are on fire tonight.
On point.
There's a lot of good conversations going on. Yep.
All right, here we go. This band did one album with Earache, and then moved on. This album
I know what you're going to show.
This album sounds nothing like their rest of their discography, they kind of found themselves after this album, and that is Vader, the Ultimate Incantation. This is an excellent death metal
You
album.
bastard. You bastard.
And they got a lot more, I think, distinct as they went on. They kind of found their own sound. This here, people might say I'm wrong, but this strikes me as a bit of a Florida feel to it, a little bit.
Absolutely.
And this comes from
this sounds like a Florida death metal record.
Yeah, it sounds like
Hands
a Florida
down.
death metal record, and it comes from a band that was sounding very much like Slayer early on in their demos. So I mean, this is a band in flux. This is a great statement, mission statement. They got way better with De Profundis and Sothis and Litany. I mean, they found their own style.
Oh, Litany is so great.
They got so much better, so much tighter, so much faster and more precise and perfect. Vader is great. This is an awesome debut album, although it sounds nothing else like the rest of their catalog, but it's a very good album, and it was cool Earache picked them up.
So I've seen Vader live 3 times, and one of the times I saw them was at MDF, and it was when the Empire came out, which is one of their more thrashy, like death thrash records. And everyone was expecting to hear a set very heavy on the Empire. No, they played the Ultimate Incantation in its entirety. That was what they played at MDF. And I was just like, holy fucking shit. It was amazing. It was so great. So great. I love Vader. So.
I cannot keep up. I go to click to turn off a comment, and there's already 3 more. Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so many people are saying like Vader doesn't have a bad album, and they really don't. Even their albums that people are like, yeah, they're okay, like they're still great albums. Vader just knows what they're doing 100%, and they're all good. I have not heard Vader has not done an Elude album, so
Not yet.
not yet. Fingers crossed, but
yeah. This is one of the bigger bands on Earache where I've got to dig through their catalog more. I don't know nearly enough about Vader. Don't know why they just.
That's the weird thing about this one. Like Vader was signed to like a 3-album contract with Earache, but they broke it after this album because Digby was fucking them too much, and they were like, "No, we're better than this. We can do better." And then their second album, Sothis, was on some tiny label. That's a super hard album to find.
I have it on tape. It was a mini tape or whatever.
It's like an EP or whatever, but that's a hard one to find. And De Profundis was really hard to find.
Just got reissued last year.
Yep, Nuclear Blast just reissued it. Like
Black to the Blind is another killer fucking record. Holy shit!
Yep, and that was put out through Pavement Music here in the States. Like. Vader did it right. They saw the writing on the wall with Earache, and they broke their contract, lost a lot of money, and put themselves in kind of a limbo for a while. But look at them now. They're like so well regarded as one of the pinnacles of Polish death metal. You know, I think they did the right thing. They left Earache when everybody told them they shouldn't, that they're making a big mistake. They put out a few albums on labels that no longer exist, and their stuff was kind of hard to find, but they're a regular touring band. They live on the road. They are a professional metal band, and that's why they're still around today. That's why they didn't disappear after they left Earache. They lived on the road. They did what is necessary to make money as a death metal band. They did it the right way, and that's why they're just as big today as they've ever been. So props to Vader. If you
definitely
if I'm not making it clear, props to Vader for not only being an excellent death metal band, but for having the business acumen to make it work for 30 fucking years.
Yep.
So
you're up, Matt.
Oh shit. All right. Well,
I'm gonna go lose the little boys' room while you're talking.
Well, before you go off to the little boys' room, you already went. All right. Well, there's one band we haven't talked about, guys. Fucking Massacre.
That album is so fucking boring.
Go take your piss. Shut up. You're wrong. From Beyond, man. This album rules. Come on. Come on. Alan, what do you say about Massacre?
The professor gives it a solid C.
Oh, my God. All right.
Not bad, but not
people of the chat, clearly the hosts of Heavy Metallurgy don't know what the hell they're talking about. Oh my God, Massacre, man. This album's fun as shit, man. I mean, this is... All right, you've got Death, Scream, Bloody Gore, you've got Death's Leprosy, and you've got Massacre from Beyond. If you put it with those two albums, how is that not an enjoyable afternoon? I mean, this is...
I didn't say it was a bad, but
a C. You gave this album a C.
That's average.
This is an average record to you. Like,
yes,
a B minus. Come on, man. You gotta at least give it a B minus.
I'll give the cover a B because I like the cover art.
So it's a B minus. It's a
but
B minus.
The cover a B, music a C. Sorry, can't help you. It's a very strict grading policy here.
I do not agree with the hosts of Heavy Metallurgy on this one. I don't know.
Okay. Why do you like that one? It's cool that you've got the different.
Why I like this one.
About it for you?
What I like about this one, and it's not, I mean, yeah, the album artwork is great. I mean, it's
crap. Repka's worst.
Ed Ripka arts, you know, say what you will about it, whatever. I don't know. I've always liked that record because, like I just said a few minutes ago, like, you can put it with Death's Scream Bloody Gore, Death's Leprosy, and then Massacres from Beyond, and that's a really fun trilogy to listen to together. And I think it is a very fun, crushing album. It's not reinventing the wheel. It's not trying to prove anything. It's just really fun death metal made by a bunch of people that were there at the beginning of death metal. And I think it's just a fun album. I mean, if you're judging it on proficiency or, you know, this is a pinnacle, well, yeah, it's going to fail, but it's still a fun album. I mean, it's a fun death metal record. So that's why I like Massacres from Beyond.
That's a fair take.
Have you already commented on this, Alan? Can I get in on this now?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Oh, he already eviscerated me. So go ahead.
I'm not going to take away from the place and the people behind it. Their place in the death metal pantheon they've earned it. And that album isn't terrible. I'm not going to sit here and say it's terrible because it's not. But I lump that band in with bands like Cancer, and it's kind of like lowest common denominator death metal. The riffs are just kind of predictable. I don't know, man. I bought that tape when it came out. I still have it. I'll pull it out once in a while and say, okay, maybe my thoughts have changed on this. Do I hate it? I don't hate it. It's still solid old school death metal. It just, I mean, comparing it to like Scream Bloody Gore, Chuck just had a lot more, his riffs were so more, and songwriting abilities were so much more developed. It was just on like a higher plane. Just a straight up.
But that's an unfair comparison. Like, if you
they came from that. They were Mantis.
They came from that, but
they went back. Rick Ross went back to death. Bill Andrews went back to death.
To the pedestal of Chuck Schuldiner is destined to fail. I mean, that's kind of unfair in my opinion.
And Nick, I put Cancer. They're not a horrible band, but I put them with Massacre in this death metal stew that just doesn't do much for me. It just been done before, been done better by other bands type of thing.
But having said that, is it a bad album? Yes, it's been done better by others.
Is it a terrible album? No. Is it a great album? It really isn't. I have a hard time listening to it because it just, even back then when I got it, I'm like, this is okay, but other shit I'd rather listen to. I'd just rather listen to other shit.
Well, fair enough. I mean, you could always just leave Earache behind and go listen to this. And
I could
anytime you want.
You could.
This is for you. This is for you, Alan.
I wouldn't recommend it, but you could.
I listened to it here in the last 2 months, and it was okay. It was okay.
It's an all right album. It gets a bad rap. That's for another episode. But no,
Absolutely.
I understand it when people say like Massacre. It's an overrated album for sure.
It is. It is. I said
It is
that.
a for
I
sure
said that in one of
overrated
my
album.
videos before this tag went around, where people are like, name horrible albums that aren't Roots or whatever the hell. I did
Yeah.
bad albums worth bitching about or overrated, and it was one of them. People were calling me an idiot, and I'm
Yeah.
like, whatever, man. I don't care.
Well, I don't think it's that's the thing. It's not a bad album. It's a fun album. It's a fun death metal album.
It's
And
overrated.
I don't think
it's overrated for sure.
I don't think, yeah, it's overrated, but I don't think it belongs in the same category as bad albums. You know what I mean? Like it's a good album. It's fun. So I think it has merit. If it's good and it's fun, it has merit. It's not bad. It's not like, Cancer's Blind Faith album or, Destruction's Least Human Cannonball album. It's not like that kind of a record. It's a fun death metal record. Like, what more do you want? It's like any of those early Malevolent Creation albums. Like, good solid death metal, reinventing the wheel? No, but fun to listen to? Yeah. So I think it's
okay.
good.
Let's go at it this way. What did they put out after that? Inhuman Condition? Is that
A
the
bunch
name
of
of the
crap. They put out a
Human
bunch of
Condition's
crap.
the EP.
They
And a
put out a
Falling.
bunch of crap after
Not
that.
only did they didn't write a very great record, they couldn't follow up that album with anything better. In fact,
Correct.
they got worse. They got worse
Correct.
as they went. It's like they were a one-trick pony that's overrated. People get that album and fucking stroke their cock to that lame ass Ed Repka fucking art. I'm sorry, that is bad art, man. It's bad art. It's like Pokemon swirling around a fucking pink toilet bowl. It's stupid. And
Gotta collect them all, man.
I don't know. I get that people like it, and I don't hate it, but it's really overrated. And they couldn't.
I'm not
get better.
denying that it's overrated. It is not a pinnacle of death metal, but it's an enjoyable death metal record, and I don't think that makes it bad.
Cancer,
All right.
Death Shall Rise to the Gory End. Equally boring shit, man. Again, it's an English thing. That English, I don't know. It's bad stuff. Anyway, yeah,
We're all fired up here. Low noise, Jason Skills. We're all fired up.
All right,
We've made it 3 hours and we fell apart over a Massacre album. Pika. All right. Kind of get into the last of things I wanted to shout out. This one, I'm going to shout it out. I will say up front, it's not a personal favorite, but it does have a good cult following, and it was a weird inclusion on the Earache roster. And I figured it deserved its 15 seconds because I know it has its fan base. And it is one of those kind of deeper cuts in the Earache catalog. And as we said before, and I think we've seen tonight, it's a pretty top-heavy catalog with a lot of big-name bands that, again, tons of Morbid Angel albums to talk about, tons of Carcass albums, ton of Bolt Thrower albums. Not as many bands where you've got just the one release and then the band disappeared. But this band kind of falls into that category. It is Confessor and their Condemned album. This one came out, and boy, this band could not get the time of day from anybody back at that time. This was the kind of album that would plop itself down in the cutout bin.
I hated that record. I hate it.
I am not a huge fan of it either. Yesterday or today, I went back and tried listening to it again. It's like, yeah, that would be an interesting one to talk about, but
it's never clicked with me. Man, those vocals kill it for me. Like, the music is good, but it's kind of like the same thing as Cathedral. Like, great music, bad vocals, but I will listen to Cathedral any day of the week over Confessor because that dude's vocals are horrid.
The vocals are very odd for the music. Yeah,
I know people love it. I know there are people who love Confessor, but I don't hear it, man. It is fucking garbage to my ears. I know Pat's about ready to punch me in the dick right now, but I can't stand Confessor. I hate Confessor.
Yeah, I've never gotten down to a lot. In retrospect, yeah, the band has developed a following and gotten their props. A lot of folks have noted that they were kind of ahead of their time in terms of using things like they have some very quirky time signatures and things like that. But you know they went out, they tried to tour, they tried to get attention. Nobody was having it back in the day, but they developed their following. They've tried some reunion things here and there. I don't know. I think they've recorded a little bit more stuff, but I'm not familiar with it. But yeah, with Confessor, you got, there's just something about the vocals that does not mesh with the music well. And the music itself, it's very, they've always been a band that's hard to describe. They want to play these unusual time signatures, but they don't play them necessarily correctly.
Yeah, like they're like kind of like Voivod in a way with that. Like they're playing it almost right, but not quite. And I'm into it. Like I like oddly played stuff that's not what you're expecting. But that dude's vocals, man, like they are so bad. It sounds like just screechy old hag woman vocals, and I can't handle it. I can't handle Confessor's vocals. They're so bad.
Yeah, they don't match the music. The music's trying to do this sort of odd offbeat thing, and the vocals, they don't bother me quite as much as they bother you, but they just don't fit the music for me at all. Nevertheless,
it's off-putting. It's off-putting.
It is a bit.
They have a lot of fans, and a lot of people in that old Doom scene like rate the shit out of Confessor.
Yep.
I can't do it. Like it just great. It's like nails on a chalkboard to my ears. I can't do it. And I've tried often with Confessor. Can't do it. That's
it's
things. Just one of those things. People are gonna have to call me poser, if you will, but I can't do it with Confessor, man.
Yeah, I wanted to give him the shout out, but yeah, at the end of the day, it's not my cup of tea. And part of it's not just the vocals for me. I have figured out over time, I'm not a huge fan of bands that want to use all the time signatures. That stuff doesn't always wear very well with me. And some of it just goes back to junior high band. I fucking hated having to play songs in weird time signatures. They're a pain in the ass to learn when you're a 7-year-old kid or whatever with a trombone.
But it shows how talented you are, Alan. If you play all the time signatures, you're obviously talented. I mean, you got to play all the signatures.
And that's the other thing that some people then want to turn around and be like, yes, make it into like, well, that's the sophisticated way to play music. Not if you play it badly, and even some of the guys.
This is how you play metal if you have a glass of wine and you love Satan.
Yeah, it's funny because some of the guys in Confessor have even they've noted in interview clips here and there that I remember that I was like, yeah, we weren't necessarily the best at figuring out how to do that sometimes, but we gave it a good go. So even it's almost like they could kind of poke fun at themselves about, maybe they were trying to be a little overly ambitious, reaching a little farther than they could hit at the time. I don't know. And again, to folks that dig it, that's very cool. I wanted to make sure they did get a shout out as one of the kind of more unique one-off entries in Earache's catalog from back in the day. Not the band for me, but worth mentioning in our Earache discussion.
Definitely a good band to bring up. I am not a fan, but I knew somebody would show them tonight, and they have their place. So,
yep,
just not my bag. It's irritating. That's the most irritating metal band to me ever, and I have an unhealthy hatred for Confessor because it's one of those bands that I want to love because the music is great and it's right in my wheelhouse of what I like. But those vocals, man, they just, oh my God, so bad to me. But that's just me.
Yep. All right, Marty, what you got left in the Earache bag to show tonight?
You are on mute, by the way, Marty.
I got two more.
Okay.
This one is a band from Norway that has had an identity crisis since it began. They put out a new album here last year, the year before. They're trying to be black metal now. The guitar player went on to be a touring musician for Celtic Frost during the monotheist era, and that is Cadavers in Pains. This
I
came
do
out
know
during the Earache Relativity Union. This is very techy, thrashy death metal. It's really good. It always had a I always had a soft spot for this album. This is very, very piss poor album art. I mean, this is just crap. Really bad. But these guys, again, they could sit aside the throne of dudes like Atheist, Cynic, maybe not as good as Cynic, but again, very technical. Their first album, or it was a split with another band. I can't remember the name. I want to say Decomposed, but I don't know if that's true or not. Straight up kind of old school death metal. And then they got a lot more sophisticated, a lot busier, a lot more technical. There's some obvious, you could tell they kind of came from the thrash area. They're older dudes playing technical death metal. The new album that came out last year or the year before is very much them trying to be black metal. There's some good catchy riffs on it. It's just a band that you could tell he's just trying to work within, Carnage. That's it. Thank you, Eddie. Why was I thinking Decomposed? You're right. Thank you. Carnage, it was it. But this is a band that is very talented. The main guy behind the band is very talented. He's just trying to find his hold in a more popular medium, and he's always a bit too late to the party. When this Cadaver came out, In Pains, it was kind of too late for what he was doing, and now this new Cadaver album where it's trying to be more black metal, again, it's too late for what he's too late to the party, man. This is a good tape though. I listened to it quite a bit when I got it. I haven't spun it in years, but I do remember having a fond time with it for sure.
I have never heard that band. I have never listened to Cadaver.
Every album's different, man. Every album's different.
Don't
Just
think
one
I've
of those
heard it
bands
either.
who's always on the list and just never got around to them.
Exactly. Heavily influenced by Carcass. This is more influenced by Atheist. The new album is more influenced by Mayhem. So it's just like, where are you going to be, man? How about you do your own thing, you know? Anyway, sorry. Who's next?
Matt, what is left on your checklist for the evening?
Guys, we have gone through so many Earache albums. I'm down to my last two. How many do you guys have?
I got one left.
I got one.
All right. So if that's the case, I'm going to go with the one that I don't think anyone has brought up, but it's kind of the Mac Daddy of all Earache albums that should be discussed. Has anyone talked about Carnage, Dark Recollections yet?
No. You know what? I didn't even think about pulling that record.
Yeah.
I've started to pull that, but was it released by Earache back in the day? Was it on a subsidiary?
Yes.
Yeah.
This was one of the early Earache albums. This is an FDR pressing, so the tag on here is incorrect, but I mean, a band that spawned what? Carcass and Dismember, right?
Yep.
So I mean, just
not Carcass. Michael Amott came on later, but it definitely Dismember.
Yeah. So I mean, members of Carcass, but playing with Dismember
one member
guys.
of Carcass.
Yeah. I mean, put this up with one of the great death metal albums of all time, and a one and done band. I know people are waiting to see Carnage, but here you go. I mean, what can you say about this record? I mean, it's
a really
not
cool
a perfect death metal record, but I mean, if you like an ever flowing stream, you're gonna like Dark Recollections, right?
I think Dismember were better, but I do like that album.
I mean, Dismember is great, but this is such a fun record. And funny thing about this one is, you know, when Digby signed Carnage, he thought, oh yeah, this is going to be my next, you know, big band. And then they broke up right after that album. And then Dismember signed with Nuclear Blast because Earache already had Entombed, and he didn't want to sign two bands that sound just like Entombed. So, you know, and your arguments as to who is better, Dismember or Entombed, you are, well,
Dismember wins.
that's such a hard thing to ask, but we talked about Entombed earlier. I had them pulled, so I'm just going to show them. Clandestine and Wolverine Blues, worth mentioning, but
Great album.
we already talked about Entombed. I just had them with the Carnage record, but yeah, I mean, can you imagine would Dismember have been? What would have happened if Dismember signed to Earache instead of Nuclear Blast?
Probably the same thing.
You think the same thing would have happened?
Yeah.
Because Entombed went really weird after a couple of records, and
Dismember flirted with it on massive killing capacity.
They
Once
flirted
Entombed
with
started
it.
getting groovy, Grave went groovy, Dismember went groovy. I mean, a lot of them followed suit, but Dismember quickly realized that they didn't work for them that well,
Yeah, like Entombed tried to really ride that rocket, baby, but Dismember was like, "Oh yeah, that didn't work. Let's go back to So
I'm trying to figure, because it's an interesting question, because Dismember would, if they'd been on Earache, still done relatively well, they probably would have ended up as one of the bands that got included in the package deal that Digby did with Columbia, which means you would have ended up with potentially a 7th big album crammed into that mess of releases that came out right there with the Earache Columbia collaboration. So yeah, what would Dismember have done if they had a chance to have released an album for Columbia alongside Heartwork and the other glut of albums that poured out?
Yeah,
that's a weird question. That's interesting.
That's where I was going with that.
Yeah.
Like, would Killing Massive Capacity have been a Columbia Records album? Like, I don't know where that falls in the years of everything.
Yeah. Would they have tried to do something closer to Heartwork in terms of polished, sound and everything? I don't know what they would have done.
Well, let me see here. I can see what year.
And really, the only reason Earache did not sign Dismember is because they already had Entombed, and they thought, why sign anybody else that has this sound since we already have the best band out of it? But then Entombed like abandoned that sound.
Why do we need a second Entombed? And as soon as Petrov, oh man, I wish we had a second Entombed.
I gotta say, Heartwork came out in '93, and in 1993, Dismember released Indecent and Obscene, which in my book is better than Heartwork. That album is fucking crushingly good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but would they want that same crushingly heavy sound if they had been on part of that Columbia distribution gig, or would they have tried something different?
Yeah,
where are the Dismember reissues? Where are they? Like those albums have not been reissued in so long. Where the hell are the Dismember reissues? They're not an Earache band, but god damn it, I need.
Well, I know they're coming because Seagrave redid he did an updated version of Like an Ever Flowing Stream. It's a lot more detail in the cover, so it's coming, but I don't know when or where. Who's doing it?
I've been saying that for like 2 years. I know the industry is screwed up, but man, I want those Dismember reissues. Hurry up with that.
Yeah.
Nuclear Blast, not Earache Records, who we're supposed to be talking about, but anyway.
All right, Alan, you're up.
Okay, last thing I wanted to shout out tonight. Again, I'll be upfront. This is not my favorite album in the world. It's okay. It's a fun album, but I know we have some folks that watch regularly that's kind of into this band, so they deserve a shout out because there's also another weird phase that Earache went through in the very early 2000s where they, for a moment, they were signing some of these more like retro traditional 80s styles metal bands, and one of them that they picked up was Cauldron and Chained to the Night. Ooh la la.
Our own Phil from Chromium Dioxide has a connection to this band.
Yep. Chromium has knows these guys pretty well, I believe.
Yep.
So yeah, I'll be honest. Even that aside, it's not my favorite among the bands that were sort of doing that throwback to the '80s style at the time. But still a pretty fun listen overall, and Cauldron have made a good go of it over the years. They've released something just in the past 2 or 3 years. They're still hanging around. So yeah, this was one of those phases where Earache had lost their entire death metal roster and kind of looking around for other, they had tried, some of the different, techno electronic stuff, and that didn't seem to really pan out well for them either. And yeah, they're in the early 2000s. They were trying out some of these bands that were, very much getting back in touch with, their 80s inner child, so to speak. And that's Cauldron in a nutshell for sure. Fun cover, and very much throwback cover art, this giant logo, taking up half the cover. It looks like something that would have been released in 1983 or 1985. So yeah, pretty fun band. Not going to claim it's a personal favorite. It's not a staple of Earache's roster or one of their big legacy records, but it represents that period where they kind of dipped their toe into those waters. And yeah, Cauldron's got its followers. So again, I wanted to give them a shout out here.
Never heard them.
Me neither.
I think I don't have that record. I showed the picture. If I remember, I've got 1 or 2 of like their singles or something. I'd have to dig through the boxes and check. I haven't pulled them out in a long time.
Okay.
All right, Marty, down to you.
I didn't pull this initially because my version is on Relapse. I know Earache eventually got involved with Repulsion.
I almost pulled that too for the same reason, but didn't.
And there's no denying the fact that if you go back and look at a bunch of old interviews, this is the band that influenced Napalm Death and a bunch of these other bands. And they're from Flint, Michigan. And this band, to me, when I first bought this tape, this was initially put out on Necrosis Records by Jeff Walker from Carcass. He had a short-lived label. When I first bought this album, I was a little taken aback by it. I didn't really know what to think. In fact, I thought it was good, but it just didn't really have much staying power to me. It's when they started reissuing it down the road. I bought a copy of it and listened to it again, and it really stands up. It's quite innovative for its time. And these guys always struck me as, sticking with Michigan, they strike me as the MC5 of grindcore. They sound like no other band. They sound more like the MC5 to me, loud, abrasive, more rock-based grind, which is strange to say. But if you think of songs like Kick Out the Jams, make it a little more growly vocals and throw some blast beats on it, you might have Repulsion in a lot of ways. I don't know if MC5 was ever an influence, but that's what it sounds like to me. And it always kind of struck me as a little strange. But nowadays I listen to it and I really respect this band for the fact that they kind of lived and died by this album. They also had they had a 7-inch or 2 and a demo. And I think this is partially the demo. I don't know, but, they stuck to their guns. They reformed. They've played a bunch of shows, festivals all over the world, but they've never put out a follow-up to this album, which is kind of weird. But again, they're living and dying by the strength of this material. I don't know what you guys think of Repulsion. What do you think of Repulsion?
I've seen Repulsion live 5 times.
I've seen them twice.
All 5 times they played Horrified. So, that's like their claim to fame. And that's fine. That's a great record. And you're right. That is such an influential record for grindcore. The fact that they're from Flint, Michigan is crazy, right?
It makes sense. Have you ever been to Flint? It's rough.
I've been to Flint. I have a friend that lives in Flint, and yeah, it makes sense, but holy shit, man. Like, grindcore was invented in Flint, Michigan. Everybody credits it to all the bands, but was it really credited to Flint, Michigan? I think it is.
It should be.
It should be. But yeah, I mean, I love that record. That is a great album. I wish they had done more than Horrified, though. Like, it's one of those kind of records where it's so good, you know, and they've reformed so many times. Like, put something else out there, man. Like, come on, do it. What's
Yep.
stopping you? But they just always play Horrified every time I've seen them. And I've seen them at small concerts. I've seen them at huge, you know, multi-band concerts. And, you know, it sounds great every time, but I would like to hear more from Repulsion than just Horrified. But that's all they play. So,
yeah,
Good shit.
yeah. Again, it's getting when you start getting into the grinding of things. That's not in my wheelhouse as much. But this one is pretty good in that sense. And Marty, I remember having the same initial reaction to it the first time I heard it. It's kind of like wasn't quite sure what to make of it or
Hard to
where to
process.
put it. Yeah, it took a bit, but yeah, if I was going to pick some grindcore to listen to, this would be high on the list of possibilities. Again, it's not just the right genre for me, but it is a pretty cool album, and it is a very neat historical artifact. It came out so early and had such a crazy sound to it. From I mean, if you asked people to think where does this album come from, you could give people 100 guesses and they would never guess Michigan, I don't think.
Yeah.
and especially Flint. Like, Flint is such a shithole. Oh my god,
It's bad.
it's so
bad.
bad. It's so bad.
It's so bad they're poisoning their own people.
Yeah, and like that. I mean, shit. When did that Repulsion album come out? 86, 87?
It came out real early. I mean, this pressing came out in fuck.
I mean, it was 80s, and Flint was bad then, and then there was the whole thing with the poisoned water that was never.
This came out. The Relapse issue was 92. It came out before that. It came out in the 80s. I'm sure. Jeff Walker put out on here. Let me see if it's on the cross on the.
But you're right. I mean, that Repulsion album. Holy shit! Is that a indicative picture of Flint, Michigan? I mean,
came
Flint,
out in 89.
Michigan has always been bad.
It came out in 89.
89, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Their first demo, Slaughter of the Innocent, came out in 86.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was thinking 86, but it must have been the demo.
But still, like if Flint was that bad in the mid to late 80s compared to how bad it was when the water line was poisoned and never fixed, imagine what kind of grindcore band would come out of Flint, Michigan today. Holy shit, it would be awesome.
I've only been to Flint once, and it was at the Capitol Theater, and it was to see the Forbidden, Death Angel, and Realm tour. They played the Capitol Theater, and we got there way too early in a car that wouldn't lock. We were parked in a back alley. We sat in front of the venue, leaned up against the wall. The same Impala of gangbangers would slow down by us and all look at us, and then spin out and drive away. They drove around about 5-6 times, did that to us. And then we got inside, and Mark from Death Angel's like, man, you guys are crazy. We heard there was a drive-by here last week. And me and my buddy looked at each other and went, what did he say?
You should have been like, well, yeah, it's Flint, Michigan, bitch.
The first time I've ever been there.
It was fucking Grossack. Come on.
Yeah, it was crazy. We made it out alive, though. It was all good. But yeah, Alan, you're up. You got anything?
No, I'm good. I have said my piece and shown my records for Earache. Anybody, do you or Matt have anything left that you wanted to shout out before we start to wrap things up?
I'm good, Matt.
I just had one left, and I just pulled it as a joke. We already kind of covered this band earlier, but Ultraviolence. Come on, man. Give it up. Give it up for Ultraviolence. This is the album that has that infamous cover of Black Sabbath's Paranoid. And
third track. Nice.
Holy crap, is this terrible techno music, but I have a soft spot for Ultraviolence just because I love electronic music, and Ultraviolence is such a cheesy form of it that it just I don't know. It's good music to listen to in the background when you're driving around. It's not great stuff by any stretch of the imagination. There is so much better electronic music out there, but Ultraviolence has its purpose, and it makes me laugh. So that's why I chose Killing God as the album to show for my last album.
So really, really, you could start off with having some fun with Massacre, and then finish it off with a laugh with a little Ultraviolence.
Exactly.
The best of both
Exactly.
fun and laughs.
Exactly. And
Perfect.
you will notice
Perfect
you will notice that not a single one of us showed an Anal Cunt record.
I don't own any.
I don't own any either.
I used
Never
to,
got
but I
into
got rid of
them.
all of them.
Because they're a terrible band and nobody cares.
I used to get all that shit as promos, and it was all garbage.
Yeah, it's a terrible band.
The only thing they put out that I liked was Morbid Florist. There was a couple,
and that
songs
album still sucks too. So yeah.
Pretty much.
But that's where I'm gonna leave my showing of the Earache discography, is with hardcore gabber techno with Ultraviolence, Killing God. There you go.
Here you go. Here's someone that likes it. The cover of Paranoid is pretty fun. Low Noise Jason.
It's the most terrible cover song of all time. It is so bad, it is infectious, man. It's like D Antwoord music. Like, you hear it and you're like, this sucks. Why can't I stop listening to it? And then before you know it, you're a fan. So,
well, Matt, thank you so much for joining us and bringing this topic of discussion. The Earache was an inevitable hill for us to climb on heavy metallurgy, but it's been great having you again.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me, guys. I had fun going through some records with you guys, and next time I think we need to go thoroughly through Halloween's Chameleon album just to make Alan cry.
Have fun. I'll be in the chat trolling you.
No, you're going to be here. You're going to be here, and we're going to make you cry.
We're going to make you listen
Unless
to
you're
it
pulling
again.
some Clockwork Orange bullshit, then no, I'm not going to be here for that.
We'll drug your milk like B.A. Baracus.
So here's the thing, Alan. Before Marty got me onto the show, I was like, man, we got to come up with a topic that will just rile up Alan for like 4 hours straight. What can we talk about that would get Alan just all charged up and like, Urgh. And I was like, well, you already did Torn Arteries artwork and lyrics and everything, and I always poke fun at him with Halloween's Chameleon, and we couldn't think of anything that would really get you going for a few hours, but oh my God, we're going to think about it. So the next time I'm on here, buddy, you better get ready because you're going to be crying, my friend.
We'll double barrel the Red Bull, and we'll just make a night of it.
We're gonna have a few tinnies and we're gonna go nuts with it. So there you go. But anyway, thanks for having me, guys. I had a lot of fun hanging out with you guys tonight. It was a lot of fun talking about Earache Records, and hopefully we'll do it again sometime soon.
We shall. And thanks.
It was great having you, Matt.
Thanks to everybody in the chat for hanging out too. I know there's a lot of bands that we didn't get to mention and a lot of cool albums that didn't come up. I'm sure there are fans of acts like Gamma Bomb and Evil out there. Sorry, we can't mention everything.
You can't cover everything, but we went through a lot. I mean, almost 4 hours, even though we went off on a few tangents here and there. We went through a lot of Earache records, so
I think we've done it justice, even though we couldn't get into every nook and cranny of the discography. But yes, thanks to everybody for hanging out, commenting. Like Matt and Marty have noted throughout the night, it's been a very active chat tonight. Lots of good discussions there, folks. Hopefully, they've had a lot of fun hanging out, and we hope to see y'all again sometime next week for another show.
Yeah, you guys have been great. Crazy in the chat tonight, and we're still 60 people strong. Thank you so much. You guys keep us going on this for sure. And the artwork has finally been solidified for the Heavy Metallurgy t-shirts. I need to get that shit figured out this weekend and maybe on a press next week or so. So look for soon some Heavy Metallurgy shirts with artwork done by Nate Burns.
Eddie,
Very-
we did not miss Nocturnus. That was earlier, man. You tune in a little bit earlier, pal.
Yeah, we covered. I think
we
Alan
talked
showed
about
Threshold.
Nocturnus. Come on, man. Come
We
on,
got
man.
it covered, right?
Sheesh.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's that
Threshold, the key was shown. Yeah. We're
Anybody
yeah.
that-
we covered it, man. Go watch the replay. Come on.
And
Come
also,
on, Brady.
if you're not a subscriber to The Dark Path, please go over and subscribe. Matt is doing some great work over there. And if you're not subscribed to Let's Talk Metal, Mr. Allen, our awesome co-host, is very much kicking some ass over at his channel as well. And also, this channel is like 30 people away from 3,000 subscribers.
What?
When we get there, we're going to have a contest. So if you're just a looky-loo, it's time to subscribe. Exactly.
The 3,000th person who subscribes, Marty, you will get a free Heavy Metallurgy t-shirt, and Marty will fart in the envelope and then quickly seal it up.
Fart in a jar. I want to fart in a jar. That's what I want to do. You're going to get fart jar and a t-shirt. And
Can I just get one of
hair.
those just because I was a co-host tonight? Like, can I get a free t-shirt and a fart in a jar? I kind of feel like I
you
deserve
can get
one.
the free fart jar.
I feel like I deserve one. So
I tell you what, send me the booklet from that Chameleon CD and I'll roll it up, stuff it in a jar, and then I'll do something in that jar and send it back to you.
only if you shove it up your ass first. It has to be shoved up your ass.
That's a whole different. That's a different video completely. That's
Alan.
That's
Alan.
that's going down a very dark path.
Alan, that's what the dark path is all about. Come on. It's
Marty's
in
the one who's got
brother.
the
It's in
big
the
jar
name,
and
brother.
the
Come on.
video. That's Marty's video, not mine, man. Like, there are some places I cannot follow you, Matt.
Things always take a dark turn when you're on the dark path. Am I right?
Well, Matt helped to bring me up to speed on the back catalog of Psy. Thank you, Matt. That band has got 4 fans, and Matt is one of them. And Alan is one of them, too.
Mm-hmm.
Rick, what's your channel's name, Marty? It's Marty Worm, of course. Thank you, Rick.
You're watching it right now. If you're watching this
right
video, you are on Marty Worm's channel. Come on, guys.
Anyway, y'all rule. Thank you so much for hanging with us tonight, and we will see you next week. Maybe Wednesday. We don't know yet for sure. Maybe Friday for sure. Matt, don't hang up, and we're going to jump. Everybody have a great weekend.
It's fun hanging out with you guys. Good night.
Take care, everybody. Have a good weekend.